Nah, I can't do an intro. That's why I'm saying that's why I had to. It just wouldn't have been feasible to, you know, not
Yeah.
do it because the show just wouldn't be the show. So obviously couldn't sacrifice the normal effects. Was it that bad in
Was
terms of
what?
the skipping or whatever?
Oh, it would like buffer a lot. I think probably on the playback it'll be okay.
I hope so. I feel bad. There's nothing to do about it, but whatever.
Yep.
I wonder what
Definitely
time it
new
is. Isn't it
things.
like the middle of the night?
It's 3:30 a.m. here.
It's a 3:30 a.m. show. Hello, everybody. It's time for a post-week in review show because apparently there's just been so much momentum coming off this debate,
Mm-hmm.
And that was another thing he wanted to debate me on that too. Evolution.
Who was debating you on evolution?
With COVID, he wanted to debate me on COVID and evolution, whether COVID proves evolution, I think.
Well, I thought David was sort of. I mean, he's pretty religious, doesn't he? Believe that it certainly is guided by God or
That's an
something
interesting question.
in
I'm
that
not
arena.
actually sure what he would say about that, to be honest.
Yeah, so like I can't see how that would conflict with a lot of the things you say.
Well, it's axioms, I guess. Not to keep harping on the same thing, but what words mean
Mm-hmm.
depends on whether axioms mean anything, I guess. And whether
Right.
axioms mean anything depends whether the definitions of everything together are all self-consistent, which is something that is not really that easy to establish as a fact, because you sort of have an expectation of a certain level of consistency, but what is really consistent, right? Because people, this cogito thing, there's not really any evidence for the cogito.
What is it? Cogito?
The cogito ergo something.
Uh, that sounds like Latin. What does it mean?
I think therefore I am.
Oh, yeah. I know that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that
isn't
doesn't
that's
really
solipsism or whatever? It's the only thing you can know.
solipsism is that only the self exists. The doctrine that only the
Hmm.
self can be known to exist. For some reason, I think that's how you actually say it.
Right, and I think therefore I am is sort of along those lines.
Only if you're equating thinking to self, which is like not really that trad.
Well, then how do you? Well, if only the self exists, and then
We
how do
have
you
to
know
know
the
what is
self?
the self.
How do
The
you
whole
know the
point is
self
if
exists?
only self exists, you have to either figure out what self is and verify that it's all that exists, or just take it on faith, really.
Hey, what's that Twitter meme on the right? A solipist following 0 followers.
Everyone who ever
everyone
existed, one including me. Yeah, so there's truth to this. The
following
monad
0. I
is
like that.
not redundant.
Following 0.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
I just hope everybody can be like that. It just, seems to be a real barrier for people for cognition at that level of hard solipsism. It's like that's peering into the void for them.
Oh, you see the pickup line joke there? Excuse me, miss, you've just disproved solipsism. What? There is no way my mind alone could have created something as beautiful as you.
It's like ultimate cheese, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Well, it's it can't be falsified. So what are your options? You pretend that you can sort of convince yourself that it's impossible based on what? Like your own random estimation of what's rational.
Mhm.
There's clearly limits on, there's different ways to look at the whole self as all that can be known to exist, excuse me, just your own the root of your perceptions has a centralizing effect. There's a
Mhm.
centralizer function on your integrated information theory, mind centralizing. It's basically all it is. Self is the centralizing principle of the hierarchical what you are.
I like how
Self is
you call
the
yourself a
fact that it's
user.
going into a sphere. Sorry, user where?
In your path there. It's your home path on you're on a Mac, right?
I feel violated here. Let's not
Why?
talk about because I don't want to talk about my shortcuts
Your
or
shortcut.
rather pathways. Let's just talk
Well, you're
about the names,
showing it on
okay?
the screen.
That's because of StreamYards. Here we go. And then this is not a very good one, but this is
What?
basically a full-on troll force meme. This was another one.
Trust the pantheism. Cooking is easy. Metaphysics are hard. God is a solipsist. I don't really get that one.
Right, join the club. Right, this is in the T-Jump server. We have 2 people watching. Hello to the 2 people watching. I feel like Claire. Except I actually have someone else on my show.
This is more targeted for people watching later if they kind of wanted to know what happened. There's a big blowout because
Come on.
Claire came on for a little bit.
There was no fucking blowout. The fucking Duva just had to blow off a little steam, and I was the
Mhm.
landing crash pad as usual for other people's emotional constipation. This good old Jen will just lie back and take it as usual.
I would not
Sigh.
characterize you that way.
Mm,
Have you ever
okay.
have you ever encountered a truly submissive type of person? They're
Why don't you tell me what that's about?
they're actually kind of annoying. But anyway, oh yeah, I guess to sum up, it seemed to me that Duva was kind of doing an exercise in, how can I defend the indefensible? He was basically acting as an attorney for Claire. And some of the stuff he said, it sounded like he was in court, like
He
defending a
called her a
juvenile.
lawyer. He called her a lawyer. That was the
Well,
best
no, because
part.
she's studying
That was the
law.
best fucking part. No, the
No,
fact
she
she
was
was
studying
so
law. I
she's
think.
not a lawyer, I'm sorry, but if you go to school for physics, you're not a physicist unless you have
Okay,
a job in
I
applied physics or
whatever. This
theoretical
is
field of physics, I guess.
semantics. Because what I
It's
was,
not semantics, okay? Going to school is a necessary, not a sufficient condition for
or yeah,
being
you have to pass
expert.
the bar.
For
Okay,
being
yeah.
considered no, sorry, not even expert. For being able to have that as a titular designation, like, could you really call me a physicist? Sure, if you think what I'm doing is
Yeah.
legitimately physics and you're cool with that and da 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 da, but even without that, I did actually work as it's incontrovertible that I was a scientist or the very least an analyst,
I
right?
think you could say that when you were being a physicist in the sense that you were observing hard rules that dictate the identifying a voice, right?
I called it applied physics because the fact that I went to school in physics, like my boss had 2 master's degrees in physics. So it's like,
Mhm.
and the other guy I worked with had a PhD. Like, I was literally the dumb one there.
Right. Well, so
Do you have
okay.
any idea how special that was for me?
Yeah. No, I know exactly the feeling because in high school I was the genius, whatever, and then
And then you feel like a
and then
dwarf.
you go to work
I
for
could actually
people.
sort of squint my way to that dwarf feeling temporarily, and that was one of my bigger blessings in this life. So thanks for letting me share that little secret, I guess.
Well, yeah. It always depends on the context. Like, you know, I've actually encountered it in several different ways because I was like I used to doodle a lot. People are like, "Oh wow, you're really good at drawing." Blah, blah, blah. And then I went to art school, and like there's these people who could just paint like a perfect realistic scene in like 20 minutes or whatever.
Mm.
Not literally 20 minutes, but you know what I mean. And you're just like, "Oh god, why am I even trying?" And then you go
Should
and
be
you
competing with the best future version of yourself, not other people. They all have
right.
their own path, you know?
Yeah, well, yeah, and that's a classic. It's ironic because you try less hard and you don't improve yourself when you get overwhelmed by the abilities of others. So it's kind of you need someone who's just right, like someone who's a little better and
For what?
can teach you, or they're willing to really work with you and not just try to there's a whole thing where like people just feel competitive. They feel a need to demonstrate how much
I've
smarter they
never seen
are.
anything like that. What are you
Yeah.
talking about? I feel like you're, speaking Greek or something.
Yeah. And programming, I mean, it gets to a level where people will write code just to like show off, even though it's meant
The
to
learn to code
be
malarkey?
no, that's a separate that's the journalist thing. This is like you're working at a corporation and the code has to be understood by others because you're not just because you wrote it initially doesn't mean you're going to maintain it. And it's a classic problem. Like people who they could be the greatest genius ever, but if their style is such that no one can really comprehend it, they're not really a good employee. Because and I don't mean that in like servile to the corporation. I mean they're not, maybe it'd be better to say that they're not necessarily a great part of the programming community because no one is going to improve upon what they've done if they can't understand it. So that's why, like open source software and everything, that would be a better example instead of citing corporate America and being a good employee. You're not a good contributor to software if your code is impossible to read. And there are people who like to make their code impossible to read just so they can show off. So,
I like that. I don't know if trope is the right word, but I like that. Arc.
well, I think it's a metaphor for a lot of things.
Well,
People
not a
do
metaphor because we got to make a difference between storytelling and because
first.
metaphor is an accepted means of knowledge. You don't want to allege something to be a metaphor. We want to stick to tropes, narratives, archetypes, arcs, things that are not such a high standards. Like,
How about analogous? It's
what's the we
analogous.
talked? How long do we literally talk about this? The shitty metaphors thing.
Yeah. I don't know, like 10 minutes.
Like, I was blown apart.
You were really tired though, so I could hardly understand
I
what you
was.
were saying.
I haven't stopped thinking about it in a way that it's.
How much
I
sleep
mean, to
did you
me,
get before you started streaming again?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Just gone up when I wasn't tired anymore?
Yeah. All right. So back to the programming thing. I think it's analogous to a lot of situations
See, an
where
analogy and
the
a
the person
metaphor.
the person would rather they would no the an analogy and analogous are not synonymous,
Okay, fair enough.
right? That's why I
Mm,
used it because you're getting upset over me saying analogy and metaphor.
yeah, maybe if you could say analogous, you say the manner in which it's analogous, then you could build up an eventual metaphor through a series of successively
Yeah.
precise analogies or relational inferences, which I prefer to call it. Yes, it is Harpocrates.
So the thing it's analogous to is when someone is trying to show how smart they are instead of actually convincing. This is like in the whole debate culture. Instead of trying to actually persuade and convince people, they just want to show off to their audience how smart they are, and they learned a new big word.
Did you see this, I mean, meme before?
Reactionary is my favorite. That's like the ultimate. Oh, you're just a reactionary. So, okay, what is this? I think you've made a subsystem logically sound and cogent argument, but have you heard this incredibly shitty metaphor? Did you make that one?
Yeah. What gave it away? The word
it's got,
shitty?
I guess, yeah, it's got your.
The fact that the troll is like some sarcastic looking Pixar thing.
You gotta get the lawn type troll. Or yeah, what? How are they? I'll look up different trolls real quick.
That's just what I did. I put troll meme and then nothing good came up, and then I just put troll, and that seemed
Oh, this is
not
what I
great,
think. Though.
not
God.
terrible.
Wait, hold on a second. This is what I think of when I think of a troll. Here. Is this the? Do you use the StreamYards chat, or should I send
I'm looking at it. Yeah, that's what I love about StreamYards. It's just one interface. It's so easy. Except the only downside is you know what my pathways are, but it's fine.
Your pathways.
Look,
It's the fact that you called your account user. It's not. Who cares?
I didn't call it that. It's a secondhand computer.
Okay, so the computer you're on has an account called user.
Yep.
Is that you feel your privacy is invaded because of that?
Well, the fact that you're probably like meta-analyzing, God forbid, what that means. And the answer is nothing
Analyzing
because
what kind of system it is.
it means nothing because it was already on user before I
Gotcha.
got it. Didn't update it. I am not much of a computer person. I'd much sooner just have a secretary for that, or just go with
Isn't that
user
what I
and
am?
just never change it. What does that mean?
I'm your IT guy.
Oh, are you? It's quite the declaration, isn't it? I guess if you can get that rotatable 3D PT happy thing going, that would put you in definitely the top of the pile.
Send me the Blender file.
All right.
You said you were going to send me the Blender file.
I will.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you said that. Because
You just cut out for a second. Sorry there.
Because we were talking about whether it was CAD or whatever. And you're like, no, it's not CAD. It's Blender.
Like I'm having really low. I'm not sure what's going on, but it seems like I have really low connection speeds. So I don't know if I need to like disconnect.
Can you hear
me?
I'm
not sure what it is. Yeah, I can hear you. It just seems like it's the interface is saying my connection. Okay, my connection's back to normal. I must have just had other.
Well, yeah,
apps.
when you stream, when you stream your screen, it's going to take a lot more bandwidth. So if you just stick to audio only, it's probably a lot cleaner, right?
All right. Yes, Mr. IT guy.
Yep.
That's very logical. Looks like we're up to full viewers now.
Do you want me to
I mean,
share
I don't know
my
how
screen?
many of those Claire shit streams you saw, but I went to great lengths to try to include her because I did honestly kind of feel bad for a while. I mean, she's clearly very lonely.
Yeah.
But one has to consider the public good. And it's creating strife and, privileging behavior that really shouldn't be. Should I have added that or not?
I
noticed you said the F word, so I disadded it.
Oh, let me get rid of because I have like my email open and shit. All right, yeah, I just have a picture of a troll up now. If we just wanted to have a little aesthetic going like that.
Nice. People have to, make a certain. I guess you have to make a compromise. Like you want to do something, you make a compromise. She should be grateful that Tej hasn't kicked her off, in spite of there literally being at least one mod willing to pay $1,000 to get her off the channel, from what I read.
Someone paid $1,000.
I did. There was chatter that I like literally just did nothing, but we'll see.
That would be the weirdest bribe in history. I'm
I
gonna
don't
pay
know.
$1,000 so that I don't have to hear someone on a
It's
debate channel anymore.
mm,
I guess it would make sense if it was someone who was being humiliated by them a lot, right? Like if someone like I don't know, and this could
sure.
go either way, like Vosh versus T Jump. One of them I could see paying to
Did you
to
see the
not
part of
have
the last?
to not have to deal with a certain person who humiliates them.
Sir, oh, who
Wait,
might that be?
huh?
Who might that be?
Well, I was thinking of T Jump and Vosh. I think they get on each other's nerves in a pretty deep way. But that's just one
Uh,
example.
harmonic resonance and such.
Harmonic resonance.
Well, yeah, I mean, if there's some sort of near coherent decoherence, you know what beats are, right? Physics. What are beats?
Like
Just physically, what are they? What are the conditions that need to arise before you can have beats? There needs to be a delta. Delta. Ahem. I would put in beats physics just to say.
I know I was doing it on purpose
It's
too.
like not Mr. Saxo beat or whatever. That's where you use your discernment and go with physics beats. So you should just know this, but let you
I
bring
know
it up. Are you
I
actually
was
going to do that,
I was
or
doing it
just
as
more
more
instant
trolling.
press juice? So what is next? Orange
I
mocha
don't know how
frappuccinos.
to spell physics. Okay, hold on.
PH.
Well, orange frappuccinos
Beautiful.
wouldn't be funny because it wouldn't be the wordplay. Wordplay.
So just go to regular, not images, and go to the wiki.
Right.
1,000 glasses just smashed because I'm going to Wikipedia. Oh my gosh!
I find Wikipedia overly academic. Like it's too
It
fucking
honestly depends. Yeah, it depends.
technical.
Well, I think it's become that way because of the certain beatdowns and certain
Yeah.
debates. Basically, people
Because
wanting to
like
have a more nuanced take. So it's like 28,000 words later. It's like
what
this is supposed to be. This is not supposed to be an encyclopedia. It's supposed to be an encyclopedia entry.
this is my point. This is my
Sorry.
point. My point is illustrated here. Like yeah, you go on
Okay.
Wikipedia, you look something up, and it's like, okay, I want an intro to
Hey,
it.
I'm not. I
Here-
don't mind. I'm happy with it. Good. Put it all out there.
Well,
Because
it's a good
open source.
reference,
What's
but
that mean?
it's to actually learn it with the Wikipedia is the
Hmm.
last place I would go to
It's not about
learn.
learning Wikipedia. It's about learning how to learn, like my mom says.
Well, yeah, you're here to help me understand what this shit means. So it's different. But I was saying if I were to just look it up on my own, right? It's like, oh, here's this equation, and you know,
Your
it's like,
attitude's all wrong. You got to think of it in a positive way. So, what's the positive? Is when you come out on top, it's that much more
accentuates
glory.
positive.
Yeah, you got to be positive. That
Yeah.
was David's problem, you know. He's just, it's all just come crashing down for me right
You know what
recently. Like,
the funniest part with David earlier? It was like
okay.
when he was trying to defend Claire, he was bringing up how she's friends with Nazis. He was like, yeah, she's like, yeah, she probably deals with more Nazis who are more serious than like Richard Spencer. It's like that's your idea of defending her? Like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? It was, and I wanted to get on the stream and like, I don't know, you were like ignoring me.
Did you actually tag me and say send me the link?
Yes. I didn't say send me the link, but I said, can
So
I
you
come
can't
on?
just
I said,
assume
can
that
I
I'm
come
gonna
on?
know because more than half the time I invite you on, you don't come on. So if you want to
I
come on,
know.
just say
All right,
tag me,
it was the
send me the
one
link.
time that you
Not
didn't.
don't sit there fucking fuming that I didn't magically telepathically know to send you the link. Just say please send the
I
link.
was
You don't even
just
have to say please.
agreeing with
I'm
you.
begging you please to say to send it rather
I
than sit there
was just
fuming.
agreeing with you. I said it's the one time that I really did want to come on,
So you
but
need to ask yourself, why did you deny yourself the pleasure of coming on? Perhaps because David was just too negative or too much of in a
no, no, no,
warpath,
no.
and you didn't want to increase the whatever it is
I really did want to come on
aggression.
tonight. It was just that you're so used to me like never clicking the link that you got sick of it.
Not to mention you all,
It's
and if
my
I'm not
fault.
sick of it, I'm just going.
Mm.
There's no emotion one way or the other. I just
Yeah.
want what's best for you. It's more about what the probabilistic expectation is.
Right. Can I change what screen I'm sharing, or do I have to click share again and like start? Do you have it? Okay, I'm gonna stop and then.
6
Okay.
people, awesome. Well, it's already more than a Claire stream, so I guess my work is done here. Wicked. Ugh, I got the sniffles like crazy here. Ah.
Let's
Here we
see.
go. You want me to
If
screen
it's
share that?
showing, hold on. Is that right? Yeah, hold on. I got my browser.
Looks like Ozzy Osbourne for a second there.
Where did you see Ozzy? No, that's
Picture or
from.
something.
It's Patrick Bateman.
Oh.
Did you ever see whatchamacallit? American Psycho?
Oh, only about like 17 or 18 times.
Well, then how do you not recognize it's the best scene when he's admitting to his lawyer and he can't remember how many people he's killed?
I saw it for just like a fraction of a second. I couldn't render an image.
Gotcha.
Just can't believe no one's joining the show, but I guess it is a rather unfortunate time, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine we just keep going for another 8 hours?
Well, it's an international show. Well, yeah, you were streaming till what, like 5 or 6 a.m. yesterday, right? Because like I was like, the sun was coming up, and for me that's like, oh, bedtime. But then you were still streaming. And I was like, oh, and there's that drunk guy. It was funny. Yeah, who was that?
Drunky McTrashterson, Master Beater? Oh yeah. He and I go way back.
Yeah, you should try to get him on like with the proper microphone and everything instead of the fucking Crackleville.
And
it was kind of charming,
level?
like for 5 minutes, but then it was like, oh my god, this is really, I like can't concentrate.
I liked it.
No, you liked it? Okay.
Well, the subjects are so serious that
Hey, what's
sometimes
up?
it's helpful.
Hey, what's up?
Well, that's sometimes it's helpful just to have a little bit of a levity, you know what I mean? Rather than just because the conversation gets serious and then it's like, so it's nice to just sort of lighten the mood sometimes, and then it fluffs you up to go back to the subject fresh and focused type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, the occasional drunk, loudmouth dipshit is good for morale.
Hey, there were guys on your stream talking about like models and scientific stuff, but then the drama started up again. But yeah, before I forget, I wanted to mention they were talking about like when parts of the model that you can't have evidence for, right? And like someone was acting like, oh, that's laughable that you always, it has to be testable or whatever. But I started thinking about, well, it's a lot like string theory, right? Like string theory, no one is observing strings. There's never going to be a microscope that can zoom in to that level because.
And Bill Gates ropes.
What?
Bill Gates ropes. You heard that theory? I thought I talked about it before, but yeah, Bill Gates. He's been on JF's a couple times talking about.
I thought you were saying Bill Gates, but no, you're saying Bill.
No,
Gates?
it's Gaede. I think he's like some, spook, honestly, with a wacky.
This guy?
YouTube channel.
This?
Yep.
This guy? Hold on.
Yeah, he's the ropes guy. He loves his ropes, and that's the end of it. And then you've also got string, which is just like, okay, yet another thing. It's just.
Well, yeah, you're making fun of strings, calling them ropes, right?
No, they're two different theories. So one is strings, one is ropes, but they're both metaphysical aesthetic. So if we was ropes, then ropes are the metaphysical aesthetic. So why can't it be ropes as a metaphysical aesthetic? Because the rope presupposes other structures, and you want to minimize the number of presupposed other structures in a rope. Like, you're just not going. First of all, a thread isn't so much what something is, but what something does. Like, if something's threaded, it means it has a certain orientation relative to itself, right? So what are we talking about? We say thread, and then it's like a string is a type of thread, but it's like, what does that really mean?
Uh,
Understanding the problem?
yeah, hold on. I saved off some good diagrams. I forget where I put them though. Shit, that's not good to forget. Oh, I know
What are
where
you
they are.
worried about diagrams for?
Did you hear what you just said?
Well, yeah, exactly.
What are you worried about diagrams for? You love diagrams.
Yeah, I do. I just don't know why you're worried about finding them. Don't I have enough?
No. It's one we were talking about. It's not like something new. It's just I saved it so we can bring it
Oh,
back
okay,
up.
sure. The Bill Gates stuff.
I have
We
Bill
didn't have
Gates
to
on
go.
the
The point
screen.
wasn't to go into Bill Gates. The point was to recall. You want to be able to recall a list of all the possible metaphysical aesthetics that exist. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you really want to win every debate, you have to be able to simulate every argument, which seems impossible, right? It's not.
Sure.
It's not.
Okay.
There's maybe infinite complexity, but it's a finite sized thing fractalizing, crystallizing inside itself infinitely, but it's not really infinite because there's a measurement limit.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like this infinitely complex machine, but it's like, no, you just blow smoke into its hole. What a lovely metaphor. Anyway.
You're blowing smoke up the measurement limit's ass.
No, you're taking advantage of the measurement limit to blow smoke into a machine of unknown things, like what's a black box type thing.
Are you asking or telling me?
I'm asking you to try to be involved in a traditional dialogue.
Okay.
So you're supposed to try to give your best answer. And if you're absolutely completely without a starting point, then we can go to something else. I see you've loaded up HF8. We need a better, that's something we could talk about, is the abbreviation for this little barnacle thing. It's got
Um,
7 syllables as it stands. We got to knock that way down. Whoa. One at a time, please.
and there was this. You know what I thought? So I was like staring at this last night. But then after you left, I was looking at his channel, and I was kind of like spamming your inbox. Sorry if I annoyed you. I
Nope.
found this angle,
Oh,
which,
nice one.
because I couldn't tell some of this detail in the center, but this really illustrates the center. And I also got confirmation that it is cutouts. So the perfect form of this, there aren't these holes everywhere. All right, you see.
Sure. Sure.
For the folks that don't, I know you know all this.
So,
Um,
what is this? 3 plus 1 entangled, right?
I mean, I know that you call it that, but I don't see why it's that. Like, I
Well,
don't,
what is
because
special about HF8?
I'm just like trying to take in. I'm trying to understand it. So I'm
You
trying to like,
can't.
well, okay, I'm trying to understand it as best as I can. Right? I mean, what are we even talking about? Okay, I can't understand it. All right, bye. I mean,
You
come
have to
on.
start by thinking you can't. Maybe you
Right?
can't.
Yesterday you were
Well,
saying I don't have enough confidence.
there's something that we can't know.
Mm-hmm.
And this is perhaps, I don't know, like a snowflake of what we can't know, and we just don't want to make the mistake of confusing a snowflake with an ocean. With this type of knowledge, it's possible to do that.
I guess it's just like, the things that bother me when I think about like, why are we, why does reality, why is it so stable? Like, one thing I
It's
wonder
not that's
about
not the question you wanna be asking is why do you have an attachment to the idea that it shouldn't
should
be
be,
stable?
yeah. All right, well, here's the question is like, why don't random objects just appear and disappear all
Because
the
we have
time?
conservation of causality?
Okay.
That's about it.
But why? Okay, I'll reverse it on you. Why are you so attached to causality?
Because our universe works based on karma, which translates to causality,
Okay.
and I like knowing the laws. Hi, Pseudonym. What's happening is we're having a chitter chatter about HF8, possible mystical magical solution to all things observable. As well as, wherever the mood takes us. It's a wrap up show, so it feels pretty dang
Rappy.
well, it feels pretty open ended, doesn't it? I mean, anything you can wrap a bow on, which is basically anything.
Yeah, the lag is way better on better as in lesser on
Sure. Well,
StreamYard.
I think I might just pay for a StreamYards thing.
Yeah. They
'Cause
want
I
me
just
to
love that I
pay
can
just to
boot
join.
people so I just love the power to boot people, it's so good. Like, that today was just like, if I had StreamYards and Claire came on, like, I wouldn't even care because I just boot her instantly rather than have to worry about, like, muting her and then she unmutes herself and
I
over
was
and over, and it's
surprised
like,
that you didn't use it tonight because a lot more people tune into that. But
to what?
so we can review
You're surprised I didn't use what, sorry?
StreamYards.
Because I can't play the intro and it's part of the
Um,
show and the clips and everything.
um,
But maybe when I pay for the membership for the
well,
StreamYards, I can still do that stuff.
the way you could do the
Let's
intro.
not talk shop right now. Come on. Let's
Okay.
just keep it to the fucking come on.
Yeah,
Tech
yeah, yeah.
guy. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Keep telling yourself I need a tech guy.
All right.
I need a couple things.
You
Tech
need a
guy's not
tech
at the
guy.
top of
You
my
need a
list,
tech guy.
unfortunately. Right. Oh, there you go. That helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. 5 people watching. Still more than Claire. Anyway, where were we? HF8. Yeah, I'm into it. I just wish I could actually follow the logic, but I think the important thing is just the critical component of it, of the thing, that it's the smallest volume. What does it mean for something to be dV in that sense? It's a fractal.
Um,
Fractal of the total resonant geometry of, I don't know what you want to call it, R3. I suppose we could call it D3, and we could just call this R3, like, I don't know, but it's standardly called like the Euclidean, it's E3, Euclidean 3 space.
um, yeah. I don't know. You know. Um,
Yeah, topology's hard. I got a D plus. The only reason I didn't fail is because,
yeah. Weren't you like shitting on topology yesterday? Forget.
no, I said I had a premonition when I was in the class that the solution to the UFM was going to be topology. In topology, which I got a D plus in because I failed to take a prerequisite due to a stupid thing with a controversy of French that I don't want to go
Yeah,
into.
I got thrown into a calculus class even though I didn't like. I should have had a warmer, like a trig warm up, and
Ah,
she had a really bad accent. It was just like, holy crap. Yeah, I told you that story where I unenrolled in the class like while I before I even left campus. I went to the library and dropped out of the calc class because I had no idea what the hell the lady was saying. Back in the day before you could do all that shit on your phone. Back in the day before we had quad core and 8 core processors in our pocket.
and everybody had ADD apparently.
Oh God, yeah, I can't stay off my phone. It's bad.
Well, you got to take the occasional fast to rebalance yourself and stuff.
Yeah.
So figure eight
You know,
not
my time off my phone is when I'm sleeping, okay? That's when I take a break from the phone.
cranky.
Yeah.
This is why I don't even have a phone. Seriously, it's
Oh,
like,
that's
yeah, if I have to
cool.
have a job, I'll have a phone for that.
Mhm.
If it's
One of
comp,
them job
you feel
things.
me? You feeling that compness?
You feel
We need to
me?
focus here on HF8. I like that. Does that work? HF8? Is that short enough?
HF8, hyperbolic figure 8. Yeah,
There's a couple things.
hyperbole. Oh yeah, this was the other way of looking at it that we were going back and forth a little bit. Whoa, that looks like it could be a Nazi symbol if you added some S's to
This is not conducive to learning, is it?
it. I can't help it. This is our culture.
The stick number of HF8 is
Hmm?
la limite de mesurement, peut-être.
The
Tu
braid number is
connais-tu?
3.
As-tu déjà entendu parler déjà de la limite universelle? Est-ce
Mm.
que ça se peut-tu?
That's the
No?
that's the
Euler?
it's the Conway terminology there with the braid length, the braid number, bridge
Did you
number.
say the clown world terminology?
No, Conway, the guy who did all the
Okay, good.
knots.
I was gonna say like, whoa, where'd that come from? Okay, I'm glad.
Yeah, he died of friggin' COVID. Sucks. Or well, they claim it was COVID. Who knows what it really was? Maybe it was the CIA because they didn't want people studying.
Let's not spread paranoia on the channel.
Okay.
Don't blue balls me with regards to content, please. Um, yeah. So stick number 7. Why is that important? Measurement limit. 3 plus 1 is 3 plus 1 is not. The thing is, 4 and 7 are not independent in this system because nothing's independent. The entity of minimum complexity is this thing here. And the proof of that is that you can derive the fundamental observables from this construct according to that. So if that ends up being true, that's super strong. If it doesn't end up being true, doesn't really change anything for my model, to be honest. My model has space temporal emergence without needing to invoke this. Although if this is additionally true, it's just honestly super cool. Like, imagine if all the things we ever observed could be assimilated into this one little cute little tiny little baby knot thing. Are you there?
Yeah.
It's a prime knot. It's the third smallest crossing number. So notice how it's third smallest, so that's 3, and then plus 1 is the fact that it's
I think I
has
need
that
to do
structure of being entangled. Hello?
Tangled.
Are you taking notes?
Well, no, I was trying to find stuff about John Conway if there's like a good interview. Sorry. Um, it's not fully related, but I was gonna see if he had anything to say about the like what because he was like went into n knots, right?
So, what?
No. I'm saying it seemed like what he ended up studying kind of diverged a lot from these like pure versions.
Pure version as in Thad's thing
Hmm.
or my thing? Like, what do you mean by pure versions?
Well, don't you like Dad's model?
I'm indifferent to
Okay,
scrapings on walls.
right.
You're still
Um,
projecting.
what am I
Why?
projecting?
Didn't I ever tell you I just learned physics so that I could do this, other stuff? learning of physics was to prove that.
Wait, what do you mean? Did you mean literally? Like you want me to stop sharing my screen, or you want me?
No, I literally stopped. I stopped sharing
Yeah,
the
I
screen because you
thought
were sharing
so.
garbage. So I thought I'd share something good. You weren't
Sharing.
focused enough on the topic. You were off in the weeds. That's all. Do you want to try again? But yeah, this HF8 stuff is super simple, but also super complicated because the measurement limit is it's simple and complicated at the same time. Like it's transcendent, but
Yeah,
transcendent
I
truths are
put the
simple.
chat on the screen. Why? Like that pissed you off that I had the chat on the screen? Sorry.
No, but you didn't just have the chat on screen. You had something else too,
What?
and it wasn't the chat that I took off. I actually like the chat.
All right, never mind. Whatever. I don't actually care because I wanted you to take over. I just thought you were because you said projecting. I didn't know if you meant it literally or you meant I was like psychological.
Okay, let's do the HF8. It's
Okay.
everything and nothing. Okay, can you see why that's 3 plus 1? Entangled.
Which one?
All of them. They're all different hot takes. Okay, there's like infinity different traces of this thing because it's a metaphysical thing. Like, okay,
All right. Well,
you
the
know that
square one.
obscenely gaudy, commonly heard dog shit metaphor about the map not being the territory? What's the point of that stinking pile of dribble?
Um. I guess before it was overused, it was a good way to remember that just because it's on a map doesn't mean it's literally true.
Is that what the metaphor is meant to, if that can be called a metaphor?
If I make
Is
a
like what
map
is
of the
isn't
United
that
States
obvious? It's
and
like
then
whoever's like, okay, I really want to go to Boston, and then it's like, okay, here's a map of Boston, and you
right,
should be happy now because you got to go to Boston. It's like,
right, yeah,
who
yeah.
wouldn't be insulted by that?
That's a good way to summarize the metaphor. It's you're saying that
As
just
completely
because just because
nonsensically,
just because you have a
trivially, insipidly garbage? Is that what you're trying to say, or what are you trying to say here?
I don't know what you're trying to say. You're asking what the
I am
metaphor
asking you
means.
what the fuck the point of this horrible metaphor is, and you're saying that a map is not displaying something exactly the way it is in real life. Is that really the point?
Well, I think when it's because if someone's arguing from a place of, well, it's on the map, so it must be true, and someone is saying, well, no, that map is not an accurate representation, then if the person persists with their argument as though the map is perfect, then they're saying if they brought up the map is not the territory, they're just it's a way of reinforcing that. They're saying like stop focusing on the abstraction and take a second to look at the the
We
reality
can't
that
look at the reality though. Our only way to
right.
understand reality is through abstraction, so it's a completely tautological metaphor.
I'm not saying it's a great metaphor. I'm just saying you asked me to explain what it means.
I thought it was like saying, okay, this is what I thought it meant. Is like I'm just baffled that that's what you think it means because I thought it meant like when people think that math is real in a sense that it's not real.
When people think that math is real, uh,
When we have mathematical models for reality that are super accurate, like calculus, and then
yeah,
people then assume that you can have a Hilbert space, which is basically this like inference that calculus generalizes in the sense of there being all these perpendicular, basically violations of the measurement limit, apparent violations that try not to be but still are.
well, so give me an example of when someone would say someone would say it and it would annoy you that they're saying it,
Say what?
that the map is not the territory.
Well, I
Like,
don't think anyone should ever, 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 ever attempt to use a metaphor unless they are certain that it abides by their principles. Just to be
okay.
clear there. because metaphors are considered traditionally accepted modes of proof, right? In many schools, right? So abusing a sacred technique when you're just trying to like shoehorn your way into plausibly having won an argument, that's pretty crudgy, isn't it? Pretty not great, right?
Okay.
So really, like, if you're wondering whether you should use a metaphor, you shouldn't. A metaphor is when you've lost all other hope and you're just like, okay, well, the direct instruction is not working, right? Like it's all just sort of based upon starting from what is the best, which is revelation, but then also realizing like most people can't get that.
I think one way to say it, like it's kind of dogmatic to say never use a metaphor, never use an analogy. But
Never
maybe
unless. A
how about
metaphor is a never unless.
people should they shouldn't jump to that. That shouldn't be the first way that they try to explain things.
A metaphor is a never unless because it's a question of when is it appropriate to make a proof, and it's like you're not needing to make a proof all the time day to day in life. It's like there's only certain controlled situations where it actually makes sense to make a proof. So, or also you can teach using metaphors, but that should be a
Yeah,
standardized metaphors.
I was just gonna say that
The only place you
if
should
you're
be able to improvise metaphors is these types of debates. Is my point. So, like, it is a bit of a cheat to try to shoehorn some metaphysical garbage with a sort of savvy sounding metaphor. All that a sophistry, I think. So the best thing is the revelation. We accept not everybody has access to that. Secondarily, you have to be initiated. This is still revelation. It's facilitated revelation. That would be what most people will get is some partial facilitated revelation through initiation and then build from there. Um, Otherwise, you can do your own sort of investigations, which is part of the method, but only to so far. So if you're teaching, you can do a direct demonstration, but this is where people turn into their like blockheads, right? I don't know. We want to call that
idea to
the
be
MPC
learned,
terminal loop.
direct
What's that called again?
What? The NPC loop?
So we're calling it mental block. The science of the point is that you can't really, teach most things directly.
Hmm.
I don't even know if I can point to a single time I've taught someone something directly because everybody likes to get their own jump to conclusions, Matt, right?
Sure.
Like from that movie. So it's more about setting them up so that they jump over the mental block, which is really tiny, through the quote unquote Socratic method, which is strategic questioning to bring the person closer to the answer. So notice how each time the path of it's being diverted closer to the answer that eventually is theoretically discovered on one's own. That makes sense so far? Most people
Hold
can't do
on.
this either.
I'm looking at the diagram that you have. Guided Socratic path. I1, Q2. What's I? Intuition?
Idea,
Oh. All right. Was there a legend?
intuition.
Is there a legend?
The legend is use your brain, and if you can't figure it out, it's probably not the right diagram for you. I
God.
can't make it too accessible because,
Because then you're violating.
part of the prestige is from its occultness. So
Mhm.
I should only terroricize it to the point where it defends the honor,
You gotta
tradition,
use
and no further.
you gotta use the
It's the same with
neutral
invoking. It's the same
voice.
with invoking metaphors. It's like, do you really want to have a metaphor? Like, imagine every single thing was a metaphor. It's like this toast is the bee's knees. It's like, shut up, honey. You don't have to make a metaphor every time you get toast, right?
Okay. Well, your husband says that toast is the bee's knees.
I'm saying if he did at some point, it's a metaphor
Theoretically,
for the fact that
theoretically.
metaphors are not often invoked, and
Yeah,
that
you should
invoking them would
come.
be awkward.
You should make a list of metaphors about why metaphors are so bad.
Well, you can just think of it. Just think of
That'd
the
be fine.
idea of, your spouse, you bring them some toast and a
Yeah, yeah,
coffee, and
yeah.
they're just reciting a poem. It's like, unless that's your thing, at some point, you're like, thanks. Like, I gotta go
Yeah, yeah,
do
yeah.
the
I was
dishes,
just gonna say, why don't they say thank you? Can you scroll up a little bit?
Sure. The point is that a metaphor is something you desperately
Okay, all it was a
claw
title.
out of the jaws of the void in order to slap a leash on someone whose ignorance goes so deep that it causes you to blush.
Right.
Just saying. No, I mean, that's a bit, I'm exaggerating, obviously. Slightly cranky after the whole Duvid thing, but nevertheless, metaphors should be used with care. Why? Because if you don't, you
Answer
abuse the
Daily Double.
prestige and you end up with cheap $2 horror metaphors like causality is not axiomatic science, which ahem it is, because a cat knocked something off a bed and someone said that was because of gravity. It's like literal gibberish. And I'm the one accused of saying word salad. It's like, huh.
Mhm.
Hey Ralph, the link is in the chat. Anyone can just come right on and let's just get it all
Whip
out,
it up. Come on and whip it up.
work it out, whip it up, whatnot. See, look, we're all just friends here, right? Oh,
Wait,
anyway,
what page are these diagrams on? Because I'm in helpful diagrams. Oh, metaphysics.
so,
Yep. Sorry, I violated by looking at the path again. Uh,
it's okay as long as you felt a pang of guilt. It's fine.
yeah, yeah.
You're already on thin ice, Texas.
Good morning, Jen. Well, good evening, or whatever it is over there, man. Hey, that's a mega
Time is
stream,
time
though.
is an illusion, my
That's
brother.
true. That's true. I've never seen you do such a mega stream. I only tuned in and out a few
Well, it's
times.
because you don't
Jesus.
believe of who I was in my past life. You do not believe who I am in this life. So what I do is unbelievable. You're in same boat as Claire. How
What is the deal with this Claire thing?
that
I've only met Claire recently. Is you got some deep, long history? I can just tell by the annoyance in your voice. It seems a
here's the
bit.
thing, okay? Here's the thing. I love everybody
I
so
love
much
everybody.
that certain people, I feel like a chump if I allow them to repetitively abuse me. So, but I don't want to hang on to hatred because, there's that,
Yeah, that's a good.
whatever Buddhic thing where it's like you're drinking poison and expecting to get the other guy sick, Buddha, the king of metaphors, right? No offense,
Yeah,
but
because actually it causes bitterness and it's a paralytic emotion and stuff. That's not point. But I guess what has she caused problems for you in the past or something? Is that?
so my
'Cause-
point is that I remember that some people are horrible. And then I put a little asterisk behind their file in my memory banks of them. And then it's just like, not going to hang on to anything. But if I see them at any point in anything other than a completely controlled situation, it's going to be like, okay, to the
Yeah, I
max.
noticed because she definitely has been all over the comment sections, right, for your videos now. So
Good,
uh,
because she is a troublemaker. So if she's only focusing her troublemaker energies on me, think of all the other people that she's not harassing. Ralph, get on my level.
I'm new to this stuff. I was never on social media, the internet, until a few years ago. So I'm not really that experienced. All I notice is it's a fest of emotions. If some people are on one side of the fence, other people on the others, I try to kind of sway around it, right, if I can. But yeah, but this one looked intense. I've never seen you that upset, to be honest. So I thought I'd check in. So David was obviously quite upset, not upset, but
It was
very
Duva that was upset, dear. I was the same as always, simply neutral. Skyzilla, Time's an Illusion. It was partially it was a bit of a joke. A bit of a bancy, jokey sort of like, ha ha,
yeah.
I'm gonna troll you. But I'm gonna also bring up a diagram, so it's all in good fun.
But I mean, I
Um,
noticed you're doing the debates now, so that's kind of good. You've got yourself onto some debate
Oh
circuits.
my God, what did you think? Okay, honestly, I saw what you said, and it wasn't really that mean. So, are you
I
coming
was just
around
being
to
funny.
showing love?
Jen, I'm silly. I like making silly comments. You'll figure that out about me. But I think there's two things, and take this with the
You
best
are
intentions.
silly, aren't you? A silly.
I was born silly.
So,
That's my thing, right? But let me give you a word of advice, a tip, and you can take it or leave it. There's knowing your stuff. That's one thing, and then there's debating techniques that are orthogonal. I think debating techniques are orthogonal. Like Tom's a good debate technician, right? It doesn't matter what the position is; he's going to be. So I think you need to maybe work. I think you know your stuff. That's fine. But I think there's going to be the kind of techniques of debating.
Because
I think that's
I
something.
just learned it
Yeah,
all
because
in
that's
this
just
life,
like
right?
yeah, I think that's pretty much because I've done like two and a half years of intense debates with like most of the alt right and debating. It doesn't matter what you know. Sometimes you just got to play this kind of crazy game, right? Like, I mean, that's my advice, and I think that's the bit where I think you maybe are a bit too genuine and sincere. Probably a problem for winning
what's
debates.
your position?
Say again, man.
What's your position? You said you debate a lot.
What's my position on
Well, you
anything?
you said you debate a lot of alt-right people. Are you debating them from like a center point of view, or are you more of a leftist, or what?
Oh no, more from the conservative end. But really, my mission. I only entered this for a particular kind of mission. I'm on a particular political mission. As part of that, I had to enter and go right across the whole alt right.
Gotcha.
So I had to take all sorts of positions from all sorts of arbitrary things. So I learned to, and then obviously, from the speaker's corner scene, you've also got to be able to do the bear pit thing, right? When you're in a panel with 10 people screaming at each other, as opposed to a one-on-one discussion.
Were you ever on a modern day debate, or like if I wanted to find your best debate, what would I look up?
There are a bunch of famous ones where I think Joseph the Zionist and the leader of the British alt-right, Mark Collett, and I debated. There were a debate, me and.
Well, did you cut out or hello?
You probably find that by Googling, yeah. And then, I mean, in real life, I've debated people like Noam Chomsky and stuff on NPR. So,
real life.
But I'd like to get a modern day debate at some point. I promised Jen a debate, but Jen seems to be on her way upwards. So,
what do I look up? All right, I'm looking at Mark.
Isn't time space? I just want to answer the question here.
Right,
isn't time space? No, time isn't space. Okay, it's 3 + 1. If time was space, I would just say 4. Because you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're not equal. They're not isomorphic concepts. They're the 3 + 1. They're not equal to each other.
Maybe that's actually a good metaphor. They're like the ground of isomorphism in the coordinate system with which we are familiar, but not within the absolute coordinate system, which cannot have as axioms space or time, because space-time emerges from. Anybody want to take a crack?
The trick is in the 3 + 1, right, Jen? It's not 4, right? For a reason, right? But hey, I'm not a physics person. Yeah,
but that's my joke.
Go ahead. Yeah,
it's 4.
3 + 1 is 4. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, I'm on your channel, but you only have 2 videos. So
I've got about 2,000 videos, but now recently I'm going to be talking to a lot of people like priests and stuff on that channel. So so I've got to sanitize that content literally. But yeah,
in the private chat, can you just send a good link for me, or?
Yeah, I could probably find something for you. Bear me a second. I'm having a cigarette, so I'll do this in about like a minute.
Yeah,
just if you're gonna come on a lot,
we want to have a fresh start after the cleansing. So I do want to answer this question. So we have to think of it in terms of like, well, space time. We feel like time is the prime mover. We feel like, okay, because basically that's what the Big Bang says. Big Bang says that was the beginning of time, and then that's been moving things forward forever, and that's fine. But that's not how it works, because space-time is emergent upon some more fundamental property, which is I would characterize it as information. And then it's like, well, what's information? And that's monad is basically this idea that there's a 3 + 1 measurement limit. What does that mean? Periodic table has 3 + 1 in 3 + 1 states. Oh, that's 118. What does that mean? I don't know. Take it up with God. I just know that it's a way.
Quick question, Jen. Do you think that's because all these guys are really stuck and they've assumed the A series of time and that's it, right? They always assume
they've never They don't have our, time thingy. So
Yeah.
they don't understand that physics isn't even the biggest thing you can know.
Correct.
So it's like, yeah, I can just.
Yeah.
Yoga's bigger than physics. So.
Love is the greatest thing you can know.
I heard that earlier, and I was alarmed by that because that doesn't sound good. That sounds like the precursor to like a mass hysteria, where people are like, "Why would you want to like encourage mass hysteria to happen? That's the thing you really kind of don't want, isn't it?"
I know I've got enough hysteria in my life. I'm looking for some calm and some tranquility, if you ask me. But I like the iceberg thing. Tell me more about it. I only came up on Jen because I'm interested in things like physics and new models of the universe. So what's this? I was intrigued by the sphere thing. The sphere thing really got you have a way of getting to me, because I'm like, why is she making the sphere prime? Why is that primacy now? Help me out here. So because I got your quantum
upamana for this yuga. It's a question of what's the thing for the yuga, and that changes with every yuga. So
okay,
it was because the way that it was actually a good sort of timing, because it was JD who asked me the question that made me make this diagram in the first place, which I guess it's like borderline not a diagram, but whatever.
What are you trying to depict, the iceberg principle, or?
Well, the question is, what's the relationship between the monad and concrete? The eternal.
So how do you instantiate the monad into
put alternatively, what's the minimum metaphysical complexity for questions to even make sense? I.e., what is the simplest possible coding language that could actually give information that was distinguished from noise? How's that sound?
So you're saying, okay, I'm trying to keep up with this. Okay, so basically, because a sphere would be a minimal Platonic ideal, then its projection would be the minimum.
It's not a minimum Platonic ideal; it's a minimum energy state.
Right. Sorry, I'm just making some noise here.
And then when it manifests, it's in the minimum energy shape, which isn't the same thing, because the state is a pure form and the shape is a concrete form.
What's that? That's not me, right?
Okay. I didn't do nothing.
I thought I heard voices. I was getting nervous. I do usually hear voices, but not that one.
Yeah, you're hearing things. Sorry.
Not Right Said Fred or anything, right?
Never. I don't.
So I want to know more from Skyzilla about this solipsism argument, because I've been confronting solipsism and I'm fine with it. I mean, who cares? I mean, whoever denied it supplied it, right? I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm going very long. I've got some chores to do and crap. So basically, you're saying if the monadic, okay, I get it. If that's the perfect, I guess, non-material instantiation, then the material instantiation won't have the same symmetries, right?
How much do you know about Vedanta?
Redanda, not very much. No.
It's all that, basically.
Yeah. So, but are you saying in simple English? Are you saying if the sphere is an ideal, I guess I'm trying to use the language carefully, some Platonic form, then its instantiation wouldn't have the same symmetries, right? Hence, you get mass versus light or something, right?
It's a hierarchy of symmetry.
A hierarchy.
What is the primordial symmetry? And then there's deformations upon a primordial symmetry.
Okay.
You can take some dough and deform it. And every dough starts as a sphere. Okay. Everything starts as a sphere. Everything ends up as not a sphere. And if you can find its natural sort of orientation, you can infer what its original sphere would have been had it no action potential upon it, and thereby ascertain what its action potential is. I.e., why is it not a sphere? I.e., what's acting on it, right? Because that's the actual polarization, but it's not just one sphere either. I don't know if this is you, JD, but somebody does have some audio coming through. Slightly annoying.
I shouldn't anymore. I turned it off.
It shouldn't be me either. Okay, so I get you. So therefore, it's deformation into the material, or deformation into things like quantum.
Deformation is materialization.
Yeah, that's it. I think I'm catching up with you. Okay, so the deformation.
Hey, Illusio Diamond Mask, why do you debase yourself for a bunch of internet losers who are just going to insult you for quote unquote orbiting me and being a simp? It's like, Do I even really let people simp for me at the end of the day? Or are pretty much people only allowed to simp for arguments, aka not simping for me? Like, the fact that you had to say that is like, change your tampon.
Skyzilla in the chat. Skyzilla, crazy name. Skyzilla.
I was looking into the space-time thing, trying to find out how time is applied to the equation in a specific way, but I'll bring up the solipsism thing after. Well, you can't really do that because solipsism is unfalsifiable. It's you, Ralph. Can you mute?
Sorry, whoopsies. One thing.
This whole thing of coming on my shows and playing a little bit of audio to try to throw me off, it's like the fact that people are that contrived in their shenanigans is ultra shenanigan-y. So the question is space-time the prime mover? Is it? I don't know. We got to prove it. So metaphysical proofs are hard. It's like, yeah, it's a little tricky to do this stuff, but got to have faith that it can be done, and God will provide. Pseudonym.
I like to drink water at the bottom of that 4 lines. That's quite good. Drink H2O.
That was more a note to myself. Pseudonym. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
You don't sound like a troll.
No, I'm just honestly interested in what you guys are talking about, so I'm kind of just joining in, and kind of just any comments or remarks I'm willing to take, but for the most part, I'm willing to listen.
How'd you find us?
Honestly, I've been with Modern Debate since like essentially first started, so I saw you, I guess, on a stream the other day, and somehow by the way the lines of the stars align, I guess this was one of the first live streams that just showed up when I searched it, so I figured why not.
Oh, that's amazing. I've just been basically a powerhouse of streams ever since it happened. I was so excited after. Like, I can't believe it was 2 hours and 45 minutes. Then I did an 8-hour post show, and I was like, okay. And then I had my normal show, weekly review, and how long did that go? It's like ridiculous. It was like, Dude was trying to see if he could. I think he was just honestly trying to see what my endurance was. It's like, fine, I'll see your 7-hour stream, and I'll raise you another stream, and I don't care. Go ahead, Texas. Go ahead. Bring it on. Hey, Anders, what's up? I'll just, but yeah, that's the story. So it's
So hey,
basically
JD, I put a link in the back chat for you.
Yeah, what'd you say? Sorry.
Oh, that's what JD wanted, a video or something, so I found one for him.
Oh, nice. Sure.
All right, thank you.
No, Nim. So are you here for the physics, or are you here for the? What are you here
Come for the physics, stay for the bands. Okay, I'm gonna do this.
I was gonna say that's a good chat up like in a bar. Hey, babe, so you here for the physics?
I mean, for whatever is being discussed, really. But the funny part is that I'm actually a monadic thinker myself, but I kind of have a different view compared to Jen's. But the physics and the space time
thoughts. We'd love to hear them.
As from what I understand, the monadic thought is supposed to be that there's supposed to be this one thing that's indivisible, and it stands for one thing alone, and it essentially means
under God of liberty.
Bro, let him finish.
So never mind.
I guess you can essentially sum it up in a way like that, but it really just takes in whatever term you call God, or collective conscience, or whatever kind of pronoun you want to put in front of that. But
non-dualism, the necessity of a fundamental non-dualism. Conclusion one comes to at a certain point of spiritual maturity that simply cannot be, rationally or logically imparted, if such things even possible. Seems like it ought to be.
And dualism is just weak as fuck, right? I've no time for
any
dualism.
type of, marrying yourself to dualism is basically tautological, because the only appropriate way to do that subjectively is to say that we're fundamentally contrast detectors, meaning our subjectivity is dualistic. That would actually be a good precept to start with, vis-a-vis the whole, like, compare with cogito ergo sum, which basically says nothing. Say cogito implies this fundamental contrast detection.
Yeah, I believe it's, yeah, that's good.
Well, my monadic thought is that actually dualism is necessary.
Here's the question: is dualism the opposite of non-dualism? What is the relation between non-dualism and dualism? And I'm not saying there's a right answer to that. I'm actually just trying to make the point that there are multiple possible answers to this, so we should consider them all so that we'll see which one has to be the optimal one.
The difference between dualism and non-dualism is that instead of considering two, you can have multiples. So instead of saying that there's two, there's no reason why you wouldn't have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6.
Sorry.
I only know the way I understand it. Did you want to say something, Ralph?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand. You mean because there were two, there could be n? Is that what you mean? Or
There could be an infinite amount in a way.
okay, so there could be n because there were two and therefore not two. Okay. I have a deeper problem with dualism. I don't understand what this is generally saying. What is this artificial construct that separates the observer from the observed? There must be something more fundamental that represents what the observed. Yeah, it's something that's more fundamental than the
Observation separates the observer from the observed. The act of observation separates those two things.
Yeah, so definitely neither could be primal, right? They could, both of them lack primacy, right? There must be something
based
higher.
on what metaphysical axioms that primacy is eternal?
Yeah, I believe primacy is both eternal and has to be the source of everything. So even the observer observation entanglement.
You're a monadic thinker too, Dr. Manhattan. You just
I
didn't
am.
know it yet.
Yeah, I think I am. Yeah. I'm not really fond of dualists.
Well, it's like they both have their issues. That's why you need qualified non-dualism, which is a hybrid model, because they both have their respective weaknesses. Dualism doesn't actually take in, like, dualism won't allow you to transcend physics, whereas non-dualism also won't allow you to transcend physics. So really, here's what I analogize it with, metaphorize it, whatever the heck you want to call it, is that the non-dual state is the primary vibration, and then there's a bunch of other nodes upon the primary one. So to say dualism versus non-dualism is just basically to say like the monad versus the demiurge, or the first harmonic versus the second harmonic. These are all just words that, depending on how you parameterize them axiomatically, will map to various ideas, of which there are a finite basis of an infinity of ideas, but a finite basis, if that makes any sense. I know Anders is on the same page. Hello?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And the diagram makes sense as well. Scale equals to infinity, right?
So maybe it's hard to know if I'm right, but it's like my one friend who has no experience in math whatsoever, and she looked at the quantum periodic table. She's like, how could that be wrong? I'm like, yeah, I like your thinking. So there is such a thing as sort of overthinking yourself, isn't there? Isn't this called a midwit meme? So how would we diagnose that tendency, right? That's where I want to go.
Hey, Anders believes in collective consciousness as the next leap for humanity. I think that would be the death of humanity. It would lead to the Borgification, right?
You're saying that like it's a bad thing. You just don't want to be a Borg with me. And I'm saying like, okay, T-Jump, you want to live in the Matrix? It's like Matrix versus Borg. It's like they're both pretty goddamn effing Borgish. At least one I get to have real, hugs.
Real hug, yeah. You got to press the flesh sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like they're the exact same outcome, but one, the sex is real, and one, it's like God knows whatever the hell it was in the Matrix, right?
Yeah.
The Matrix is hell, and T-Jump is saying he wants that.
Yeah, I've only heard a few
Everybody
he said very sort of unhuman, soul-like things, right? He said very things like, I want not to be human and stuff like that. It looks like he wants to be a battery in the Borg, right?
Transhumanism.
Yeah, I find that very, very unromantic. It's definitely not for me.
There's already that. Like, we can't disprove hard solipsism for God. So what does that even mean, right? We can't disprove pantheism. Yeah. So you just got to trust the plantheism.
Yeah, we've got some other other deeper problems showing up, right? That will hit before transhumanism, right? So if you do the maths, right, there's just under 90 billion neurons in the brain. So project the entire super state of all possible states. That's limited, right?
It's
So that's a finite.
whoa,
That's a
whoa,
finite.
whoa, whoa. No. You're simulating states within limits. The limits
Yeah.
and the states aren't the same. The limits are not the states. Oh, bazinga.
No, I'm talking about the super states, the superset of all possible neuron states. That's actually bounded, isn't it? It's a large number, but it's still a bounded
You
number.
presuppose a lot of constructs exist. You're still in the cogito headspace. Do I need to show you the meme for that?
No, but I'll take one before I. Hey, there's Claire again. Oh, that's
You're
Claire.
not going to like it.
It's okay. Claire, agnostic theocrat. Had she changed her name to agnostic theocrat?
She may have had her name changed by the. She, unlike me, is too cheap to pay for a membership of modding where you can control your own name. It's like, think about ants and how that works. It's like, are we so different from ants? It's like, obviously, we are very different from ants. It would be like moronic to think we were the same as ants, but it would also be ultra moronic to think we could share nothing with them because the whole minimum energy thing, there should be a maximum sort of resonance and symmetry. And there's really just not that much information in the universe, is my point. That fact is sort of, here's the thing that I was wondering, and Anders, maybe you can answer me. Like, have you ever seen anything establishing that a fractal is a geodesic somehow? Okay, Skyzilla, you're looking at this the wrong way.
No, sir, what do you mean? Sorry, Jen, I'm going to have to bounce you, but what do you mean by that? If fractals are geodesics? What do you mean by that?
You know what a geodesic is?
Yeah. I know what a fractal is and a geodesic. What do you mean? What's the connection bit?
I'm asking if massively the fractal is, the fractal is the massive geodesic.
They're the same thing, I would say.
I'm just wondering if that's just like something we have surmised. Is that something we can get? Because Duvid spent about 45 minutes complaining about a citation. So now for me to say yet another thing with 0 citations would be a little...
Yeah, no, I'm trying to. So maybe it's just too early in the morning, and I've got like some chores to run in 5 minutes. But so you're looking for a link. Are you looking for a way to represent the infinite scalability of a fractal to mapping it to a geodesic? Is that what you mean?
I'm trying to establish whether the fundamental geodesic
Could generate
is a
fractals.
fractal
It's fractal
in
itself.
our universe. Yeah. Is fractality an attribute of naturally arising geodesic forms? Boom.
I
See, there you go. Thank you.
Actually, so is there a okay? So right, so that would mean there would have to be some kind of Riemann or Riemannian metric. Interesting. Don't know the answer to that.
Hey, I'm just glad I could get the question out. So, kind of feel like pretty good about that. Thank you. The idea.
No, it's actually, I can see where you're getting at. You're trying to find the most fundamental representation, which itself would have fractal capabilities, which would be in some sort of Riemann geometry that you'd be able to have to show that geodesic could generate.
I don't think it's Riemann geometry. Well, maybe it is Riemann geometry, but what it's called is hyperbolic figure 8.
Yeah.
With Thad. Have you seen any of his stuff?
No, I have a crude idea. I mean, a basic understanding of Riemann geometry.
It's really hard to watch it because you feel clueless and like I feel like a big dumbass watching that show. And it's like, that's actually good to feel like a big dumbass therapeutically. It's like, it is actually good. Just like with my old job, like, I felt good.
No context, I just came in. It feels good to be a big dumbass.
I'm just saying that.
Yeah, you're in good company, man. Welcome to the Dumbos.
Yeah, I'm in good company.
Dumbos are us.
My point was that it's happened twice in my life, and there was a chance it was going to happen 0 times. It's happened twice, and it's like, that's really special. Like how my job, literally, I was humbled by how smart and how knowledgeable people I worked with were. Like, not just one, not just 2, like a whole bunch of them. So. And now this guy who's figured out this amazing thing, who's basically confirming all my axioms, like entangled spacetime, right? Because it's 3 + 1 But we're used to thinking of 3 plus 1s in terms of the Descartes in the Cartesian plane, right? Right? R3?
I have no
Bueller?
idea.
Bueller? Bueller? Exactly. Why do you have no idea? Did somebody just burp? I blame the Cartesian plane.
I
for
didn't
this.
do nothing.
Yeah, we just come. Hey, shit, sorry, Jen, I got to bounce. Hey, I'll
Have a
catch you
good day, and thanks for joining, and good
Yeah.
luck rehabilitating your image, and thanks for not being a troll this time.
Well, what's wrong with his image?
He said he had to rehabilitate it or something. I don't know. Some sort of...
He said he was going to talk to a bunch of priests or whatever.
I just feel like I can't say this enough. These atrocious metaphors are just like... The ability to make metaphors, the ability to make memes are the same thing. Like, you shouldn't be ripping off other people's metaphors. You should be trying to think up your own. And even then, you should be thinking, why am I trying to think up a metaphor? Do I want the prestige of making up a metaphor? Why? To have some illusion of uniqueness? That doesn't sound like much fun. So yeah, pseudonym. What'd you think of my debate?
Dude.
Yeah, Sued. What should we call you? I feel weird calling you Sued because that's like some people consider that an insult of like a pseudo intellectual, which is obviously not what I would mean, but still there.
Yeah. I'll take that position.
Yeah, I just wanted to know what you thought of my performance and whether you thought any of my arguments were compelling or which ones were the best or if any were bad or good.
They were compelling. It was compelling for sure because I was able to follow along, but I did think that we kind of got off the topic of evolution, but I understand how you...
I sent you a good meme for the midwit thing.
Oh! I can't load it right now because it's on a different computer, but thank you. Is music a metaphor? Very good question. I mean, that's sort of like... That would imply music was the traditional means of imparting knowledge, which sort of not really that. Music is art. So, like, can a painting make you smarter?
Well, I would say that metaphors are actually necessary in order to make something unique.
I don't believe in uniqueness.
Well, like if you know what ice is, you know what water is, you know what steam is, but they're essentially all the same thing, right? But the metaphor of each name is necessary to be able to distinguish each one of those. So, for example, if you have like a block
That's not
of
a metaphor.
ice,
That's a definition. A metaphor is you think a metaphor has to be like a concept that's super complicated, that you abstract a simplification upon the complicated concept in order to convey some component of it to make it not impossible to understand the concept.
well, that's what a definition would be because the definitions are.
A definition is more of a fixing.
But there's
an
multiple
identity.
definitions. You can take one thing and it's like a homonym. You can have one word to have multiple definitions just for a meaning of understanding.
Well, no, you can't understand if a word has multiple definitions. Right? Because it's got to be one definition, kind of. Or at least an ordering of definitions. If there's multiple ones, there's got to be some way to know which one trumps the other. And that was one of the actual arguments that I thought was good against my position, was that I may have misstated the strength of my position vis-a-vis the does Vesper theory predict the shape of a water molecule or not? Like, I'm still not really sure because it's like, well, what's the ordering principle of those valence shell electron pair? Aren't those basically what I'm saying is like, aren't those electrons indistinguishable? And therefore, what's ordering them? Nobody's saying what's ordering them unless it's implied that there's something going on in the Heisenberg level, which I've never seen any allegations to that effect. So that's all I'm saying. I'm just confused on that. So I can't actually confirm if the criticism is legit, but I'll say maybe it is, sure. And I gave him the benefit of the doubt because it's like, you're that desperate to find one mistake I made that you're willing to go to that point to say that maybe it was just like 1 degree certainty off from what I said. Okay. I guess I got to give people what they want, right? Which is like a little crumb. So there you go. But yeah, it's funny that you said that water thing, pseudonym, because this is actually a water metaphor right here. because everything is water. Like there's water in an iceberg, and it's just the water is the monad that like everything is water. It's just that the water has become ice and is some bit of it. Okay, the meme spam may
Sorry.
continue after the stream, please.
Well, the sound isn't coming through, is it?
It's coming through on my end.
Oh, all right. Sorry, I thought you weren't even on that computer.
Well, they're both on, but I'm streaming on one and you're sending me the messages on the other, so it makes the whole thing so much of a challenge to deal with.
No, I know you can't use them right now. I was just sending them to you for later. Anyway.
Metaphors are extremely potent, which is why people latch onto them, you know, like the proverbial corpulent child in the cookie. They're basically abusing them.
Right.
It's a traditional mode of proof. I don't know if that's why, but the reason it's possible to abuse metaphors is because metaphors are a traditional mode of proof. So because traditional modes of proof are so compelling, even though they're shitty metaphors, they still kind of convince people until a better metaphorologist, aka me, comes in and just sort of says, no, ha 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 ha, I have better metaphors. Could you believe his reaction though? Sorry, go ahead. I totally want to hear what you thought.
No, let's say that you convinced me earlier that what you're doing to people is because they're trolling you, have to give them a little crumb of yourself. What would you say that crumb is composed of? What do you mean when you say crumb of yourself?
Well, if somebody spent hours trying to find one little mistake and the best they can muster is that maybe what I said wasn't quite at the level of certainty it ought to have been, to make the assertion, I'm happy to grant it, because it's like, how many hours did you spend thinking about that, man? Like somebody put a literal wall of text. And I was like, not even going to read that. Not even going to read that. But this other long thread thing, I was like, all right. Did acknowledge the points, though, that crumb. What is the crumb composed of? No clue. Probably nothing at the end of the day, because there are, there's good evidence to suggest that the whole identity, matrix thing is really only vibrations and holes in an ordered photonic waveform. So something fundamentally light, but which has sort of gone through a filtration process due to the biological tissue, which has ordered it in a fractal way, kind of thing. So to me, it's just basically inconceivable to think of things in any other way than this. I just don't think it's possible to really know anything in a way that isn't traditional. And when people start saying like, oh, well, the top-down metaphysics doesn't work, top-down metaphysics doesn't work, it's like, what the hell are you talking about? How do you know that? Like, what does that even mean, top-down metaphysics? Or bottom up, right? It's like, it's not about that. It's about whether is there a fundamental thing and then it goes out from a fundamental whole, or is it just a bunch of random disparate assertions that may or may not have an actual centralizing principle?
Right. I didn't mean to disrupt your thought. It looks like you're going into the Brahmanas, but
I wasn't going to. I was just wanted to say that I didn't realize this metaphors were being abused like a cheap whore, and I'm upset. And I had a couple really horrendous metaphors used on me like recently, and it's like, okay, can I tell you one? I just want to know what you think. Okay. Said biology is not rising to the level of science, right? Because to be science has to make predictions, blah, blah, blah. Because, what is biology that could be considered science, i.k. that there's, what could be considered a model, which I wouldn't agree is a model, is this evolution thing. By natural selection, blah, blah, mutation, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't think that rises to the level of science, because you can't really verify that the predictions are actually forthcoming from the parameters of the model. Okay. And this is what he said. If my grass is dry and I have to water it, does that involve biology or something like that? That was his counter argument to me saying that biology wasn't scientific. What the hell does watering grass have to do with biology being scientific, I wonder? Hello? I know.
Like a Krebs cycle, maybe.
Well, the point is that do you need to know biology to water grass? Like, is the fact that grass needs water a good argument for biology being a science? Like, I can't even believe he said it. I'm in shock that somebody made such a bad. I know exactly. It's like, how could somebody say it's like that's your evidence that biology is okay. If I was going to try to prove that biology was science, I would try to establish that it made predictions and was a valid model, not that people water grass, and that's like, what is that supposed to establish exactly? What does that mean? That like we've been scientists, we've been biologists ever since we've had gardens? I'm sorry, this whole situation has just become so insane. And yeah, that's not a good metaphor, is it? I'm not even sure if it's a metaphor. What is, I mean, I don't even know what that is. It's an example, I suppose, of why biology is a science. Can somebody tell me why watering grass needs the fact that you need to water grass? How does that make biology a science? Like,
I know what he meant.
can you tell me what he meant then?
He
Please?
meant that like
Biology
you know,
does, like,
because
that's
like
really broad,
you know
don't you
why. Well, okay, if you don't,
that's fucking brondo tier. Go ahead. Sorry.
if you don't water the grass and it dies, this would have been a better way
Wait,
to
is
say
that
it.
like modus ponens or modus
If you don't
tollens
water
there?
the grass and it dies, and then you wanted to know why it was dying, right? Like, because it could be something else, right? Like, let's say other things happened that day. Let's say that someone you didn't like stopped by the house or whatever, right? Like, just to put it back into ancient times. It's like, well, okay, was it because that person stopped by, this bad person, he like cursed the grass? Is that what happened? Or, you know, like narrowing down why the grass
I should have
died.
made a joke about Brondo. Scum plant's great. Just
Yeah,
like
the idiocracy. It's
I should have asked
offensive.
if Brondo was a scientific drink. But why did I think of that on the show? I could have had so much fun with that. It's like, what kind of a fucking moron do you take me for? It's like,
Well,
what
yeah, and I think the
the
real
hell
argument would
do you
have
think
been
is
to
gonna
discuss
come out of this?
medicine. Like, why do you know, like cancer treatment? How about like, did he even bring that up?
Well,
It's
just
like,
because,
you know,
like,
why would
doctors
shooting
wanna be associated
radiation?
with biologists.
Why would blasting radiation at cancer cells make you better? Right? It's because you like that's the science. The science of what, you know, what's going on in the cellular level. What, you know, there are these cells that are mutating and they are growing or whatever.
Medical doctors are like, if you call us biologists, we're gonna sue you. They have sorry. Are the medical doctors calling themselves biologists? No, I want to think.
Well, hold on a second. Whoa. They study biology. Well, I'm not
Yeah.
sure I understand your
I'm
argument.
Yeah,
so
they
sorry for
they
howling
do.
with laughter, but this is. Have you ever heard a doctor call themselves a biologist?
Well, who does? I mean, like, I don't even understand.
Oh my god! I relocate garbage for a living. I'm an engineer.
All right.
I
I
make
mean,
pancakes at a restaurant. I'm a chemist.
I don't think that's at all comparable, honestly.
So what was that? Reductio ad absurdum. When is it appropriate to do one of those puppies? Get on my level. It's all about the debate tactics. And with that debate, it was so nice because we weren't at odds with each other. Like Mark and I Or like, I feel like we're friends, you know? He's a super cool guy, and he always makes a point of saying he doesn't agree with my ideas, and he should never catch any flack for for association with me, but it was super friendly,
What
I
would
thought
make,
anyway.
I mean, what would make biology rise to the standard of science? Like,
There would need to be some way to improve the theories based on the results of experiments in a
or okay, what
meaningful
do you
way.
call it then? Okay, what is it? The fact that people
What does
came up with
converge mean? Why do
you-
neural nets, just remember, why do neural nets work?
okay, forget
Because the
that for
monad
now.
is real.
Like the cancer treatment example.
Uh-huh.
Would you call that?
You would need doctors to
what
identify as biologists, but they don't.
what would you call that though? What would you call it? The people who developed different cancer treatments, were they doing science?
Clearly, if it worked,
Okay,
to whatever
so I
extent it
mean
worked,
that's
they
the
were doing
argument that
science.
I would
To
make.
whatever extent it worked, it was scientific.
All
That
right,
does make sense.
so I guess like that's what he was getting at, but yeah, I agree that it was silly sounding to say like, oh yeah, what are your plans? QED, you know.
I was like, in what universe am I just like, okay, imagine this. Okay, this is just like, what did he think was going to happen? Okay, I'm just going to be like, slow clap, and everyone's going to be like, woo! And then the whole debate's going to be over, and T-Jump's going to be like, oh, I can't believe it. You know, just forget the whole thing. Just tell us more. That was amazing. I mean, there's no point even having a debate. You're so, you know, what did they think? I was going to just, what? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How did he expect that to go, if not horribly?
Well, I mean, the whole thing with David tonight, you could make the same thing. Like, yeah, what was he expecting that you were just going to be like, oh, you know what? You're right. Yeah, you know, Claire's cool.
Well, he just heptupled down all those times. So it's like, you want to complain about other people being difficult. It's like, now I have all this evidence of you heptupling down all those times. And I was clearly saying it's like, so good old Jen will put up with the malarkey. Other people expecting from them to have that level of forbearance, unrealistic. So don't say you didn't bring
What
this on
word did you
yourself
just
the
use?
next time it
Forbearance?
happens. Huh?
What word is that? Forbearance?
So basically, tolerance for malarkey. What you give your nearest and dearest on principle.
Patient self-control, restraint, and tolerance. Forbearance. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so a source, it's like, here's the strain of logic. You want to go hard solipsism. You just want to do like, what are the different modes of fighting? Like, what's the one where you just use your
Club.
opponent's weight against them? What's that? Is that judo?
Yeah, I would say martial arts in general employ that.
No. Muay Thai doesn't use your opponent's kickboxing or whatever. Doesn't use your opponent's weight against them.
Well, is kickboxing martial arts? Like, because I know how to box, but I wouldn't call myself
Or
a martial
Aikido.
artist.
Aikido can do that.
I mean, I'm not an expert. I know a bit about capoeira because one of my friends is obsessed with it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm thinking of the one, I want to say judo, but maybe you're right with Aikido, is the one where the general philosophy is to utilize the opponent's weight against them. Anyway, let's say judo with an asterisk for possibly a better one later.
Yeah.
You have to take that approach with solipsism. Just own it. It's like to deny certainty with regards to solipsism. It's like, how do you get out of the whole brain in a jar thing? It's like, you don't.
I am.
It doesn't matter. It's like the universal nihilism. It's like,
You're not
I don't
real,
care.
Jen. I made you up.
Well, that's a bridge too far, right? Like, you can't conclude that either, because I mean, what are you going to presuppose God knowledge? It's like, oops, don't do that.
I made you up to hurt myself.
Yeah, so
Okay.
Captain Rabbit, no, you want to just let go of your illusions before you start being prescriptive about the monad. The monad DGAF, bro, is impersonal, so have to make sure to conjugate it correctly or it's not going to make any sense. You get in a situation with this ultra supreme Socratism where you think you can debunk Platonism. Literally absurd. And to the point where people can't even understand the argument. Like, that's what scares me. It's like I make the argument as clearly as I can that you need to... Believing in God is the same thing in believing that the universe exists.
I would
like-
say that Platinum debunks pantheism.
How?
Well, because you have a, if you don't have a universe and there's things being created with it, you still have to have like the mathematical properties. So for something to be created, so if the universe is a mathematical object, it would have to have been created.
Why?
Because there's laws, so you would have to assume or assert that the universe created laws, rather than saying that the laws hold the universe in place.
Is this the Kalam cosmological argument?
I mean, you can bring it that way, but it's not like I'm talking about a beginning. But
Well, everything that has a beginning is caused and blah, 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 but the universe doesn't have a beginning.
you would have to.
The premise that the universe has a beginning can be disproven because it violates the minimum energy solution, aka Occam's razor of physics, a well-established property with no counter evidence.
But what would you say would hold the universe in place? What holds it together?
Itself? Skyzilla asks how solipsism explains things like hunger, lust, compassion, patience. It doesn't. Solipsism is a soft truth. You don't affirm a soft truth. You just don't deny it. Who cares? And I mean, what are you going to go trolling people who have no clue what you're talking about with something that's very easy to straw man or misrepresent? No, you have to be benevolent and you just say, well, okay, it's just a thing. And if most people aren't ready to face the fact that this is unfalsifiable, i.e. a soft truth, I don't need to affirm. You don't want to affirm a soft truth unless you're going to the mats, like I did with Teach. Anybody remember the first time I debated Teach? All 4 fucking people watching it. I love it. And I guess you don't remember the first time I debated T-Jump pseudonym.
If you bring up the topic, maybe.
What was the topic?
Pantheism versus atheism.
Oh, right. No, yeah, I remember that actually. You know what? Assembly, I actually, assumingly, I took it as like, you guys were pretty much arguing for the same thing. But
Okay,
just
so did you understand my point about you don't want to affirm soft truth? I don't know if that was clear. Like solipsism is a soft truth. Can't remember who was asking that. Sorry. There's someone in the chat. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like an
Let me
atheist
cut you off. Let me cut you off real quick.
An atheist would have a solipsism perspective. So whether it's soft or hard, it's still within the mind. So you guys are still bringing in like the same topic together, but just a different label as far as like a religious or non-religious aspect. So you're both stuck in solipsism.
There's no way out of solipsism except for appeal to authority.
Well, there is, because you're a mind and I'm a mind and we're in this channel together, so you can at least distinguish that I'm here just by talking to me.
So that's an appeal to consensus, right? I.e. an authority. So the question is this consensus a good authority? And we can talk about that, but we have to acknowledge we're under the boot of God in the sense that we can't deny this, assertion that we're all living in the mind of God, although we don't know what that means. We know we can't disprove it. We can't draw a boundary to our own consciousness. We can't disprove that consciousness is just an attribute of the universe, even though we don't really have any means to know what that implies. We can't falsify it.
You know that there's your mind and there's the universe. And then if you say that there's a mind,
we can't necessarily know that my mind a subset of the universe mind, or is it somehow emergent from it? I can't presuppose anything of the sort. I don't want to make any more presuppositions than I have to, because I'm going to believe those presuppositions, and then I don't really want to be stuck.
Yeah, but in the universe,
to remove a false belief that is just not even that. I just don't want to commit to a belief that I'm later going to have to remove for no reason other than it seemed whatever. Here's the thing, here, put it back on people. Why are people so eager to deny solipsism?
Because it makes you a brain in a vat. It keeps you kind
It
of
doesn't
like,
make you a brain in a vat. It means you can't disprove that you exist entirely within the God mind, aka cosmic egg. It does not make you a brain in a vat. That's not what it implies. Because why can't the brain in a vat thing be correct? It's not the minimum energy solution. Our universe accords with what you call minimum energy solution. So for there to be a brain in a vat, somebody's got to build that vat, right? Somebody's got to make the computer that's plugged into the electrodes. It's simulating the thing in the matrix type thing. It's like, who did that? That totally violates the minimum energy solution.
yeah, but as a soft solipsism, you would say that's just possible. You wouldn't actually take that as a real truth or fact.
With solipsism, you don't want to deny it, but you also don't want to start making inferences, and because you don't want to presuppose that you transcend it. It's just something that is there, and it's just sort of like hanging in the room like a bad fart. You can't do anything about it.
Yeah, but if I say the word monad, then you would have to take a completely different framework of how you think about solipsism.
Monad and solipsism are not incompatible. Monad is the part of the authority you use to claw your way out of solipsism.
Right. So you're already out of it because you believe in a monad.
I'm not out of it. I've taken one step to recurse away from it. I can't get out of it. I'm always in God's universe, okay? I can recurse away from the complete uncertainty of only relying on my direct sensory experiences as authoritative, right? That's a big burden. You're saying I have to figure out the entire universe. Like, who can do that? Can anyone do that?
But it's
Right?
the monad. That's what it is. That's what pantheism is. And that's why solipsism kind of
Not
goes along with
necessarily, because
antheism.
you could say that Spinoza was a pantheist, but not a monadist, because he was a non-dualist on that level. If all that exists is just one thing, that's not monad.
Yeah, but monads aren't pantheists.
Monad is an animating principle upon non-dualism. It's more than just non-dualism. That's my point. Did you want to say something, JD?
About what?
I don't know. You just made a little sound there. I was just wondering, did you feel like this topic or not?
About solipsism, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
The brain in the vat. Well, okay. I guess. Are you saying? What's your point about it, or what is it that you're annoyed about it?
I'm not annoyed about anything. I'm trying to make a point about the difference between something tautological and predictive, which you could say is a theory, a thesis, or at the limit a sutra, which is going to be your like divine crystallization of maximum imparting of knowledge. Huh?
Maximum
Wow.
imparting of knowledge. I'm sorry, I don't really have any thoughts on it.
Well, what does unfalsifiable mean?
It means that you can't. It's a statement where there's no experiment or there's nothing you could say that will counter it, and so it's like it's not a good scientific assertment because there's nothing you can do to I don't know. I think it's kind of self-explanatory.
It's not. You're saying that unfalsifiable is bad, and I'm saying it's not. Unfalsifiable means you can't prove it false. That means
It's not
it's
always.
true.
Well, no, because I was using it against Duvid earlier when he was saying that it was subconscious.
I think what you're trying to say is untestable. That's not the same as unfalsifiable. So something being untestable, for example, with the metaphysical assumptions of evolution, those are untestable.
But it's a common parlance in the
Since
world.
Karl Popper.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard a lot of scientists use.
What does it be in common parlance? What bearing does that have on anything? Sorry.
I don't know. Because
Like, it's another excuse, right? It's
You're
like, God.
using whatever definitions that you come up with, and it's like, okay.
What's that? I missed the
Yeah,
beginning of what you're saying, sir.
You're like coming up with your own definition, expecting others to.
Yeah, well, I had to do it and clean up the garbage. It was unsalvageable, and I was like,
All right,
monad.
well,
And then I
then
was
you
like,
have
oh,
you
the
have to
sphere is a
explain it.
perfect metaphor for the monad, so I'm just going to seize the gonad and the monad and just be like, sup.
All right, so just
Homeboy,
explain what you
yo,
mean.
I'm
Explain what you mean.
saying.
So unfalsifiable versus untestable is different in your mind.
When they say unfalsifiable in science, what they mean is unverifiable. For example, the whole, oh, I predicted this intermediary species and we observed it. It's like, that is not a means to verify your assumptions about the mechanism through which macroevolution happens. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it's unfalsifiable in the sense that that experiment, no matter what, couldn't falsify that assumption. Do you understand why that's not scientific? Because science ought to give you a way to update your assumption if they're errant. And if it doesn't, that's a problem. So it's just getting that fact across is where the wires are crossing with regards to this unfalsifiability. But in its actual just form as a word, falsifiable means provable false. Unfalsifiable means you can't prove it false, meaning it's true. So if I say I have an imaginary pet unicorn, or sorry, if I say the visible pet unicorn, okay, if I say that, is that falsifiable? Not really, because it's invisible, right? If something's invisible and I say it exists, well, it's my word against yours, right? That's the limit of this solipsistic view. And it's like, well, yeah, it's unfalsifiable because it's just some random assertion. An unfalsified thing that's just randomly asserted with no evidence is basically worthless. But the evidence of solipsism is that it doesn't give you nothing. It gives you the fact that people get triggered by the fact that you assert it, which is its own brand of information, right?
Maybe one way to look at it is like whether or not the model is helpful
in triggering people,
in understanding other, phenomenon. Like, does it translate?
I don't know how you'd establish that necessarily, right? You know what I mean? How would you know that? Don't you need some sort of like way to measure how good something is at telling? So Skyzilla wants to know how solipsism interacts with our consciousness. It doesn't. It's the ground of our consciousness. It's just a fact of reality. Like, look up egg models, older sort of classical views on an egg universe. This interpretation is really not unprecedented. It predicts, okay, I really just don't like that this other version of prediction now is like this thing that it has to be like something no one's observed before. It's like, I'm pretty sure we're going to run out of stuff at some stage, and then we're not going to be able to do science anymore. Okay. Let's see here. Sorry. What the heck was I just talking about? You guys help me out. Hello?
You're talking about falsifiability.
Yeah, I think the definition of unfalsifiable is that you're at least able to test it and not necessarily make future predictions, but you can
I think
test
the word
it.
is verifiable. The correct word in science, they should say verifiable instead of falsifiable, because if you can verify something, that's an attribute of science. But for some reason, they've put in falsifiable, and it's caused a lot of confusion, right? Because I understand why you could say, well, yeah, it's falsifiable, and that's a good thing scientifically, meaning that it's possible to determine flaws in the metaphysical assumptions, but then it's like also conflating with this idea that is my model falsifiable? It's like, well, no, of course it's not falsifiable because it's true. You can't falsify something as true. You can't prove something true false, right? That's why it's true, is you can't prove it false and you can prove it true, right? There's all this criteria associated with something being true. What I'm saying is that, and by any standard of proof, my stuff is true because I've already had it adhere to the highest standard of proof. So obviously all the lower standards are going to be, it's going to accord with them too, right? So yeah.
What's the highest
Anyway.
standard of proof?
Well, sure.
No, I said, what is the highest standard of proof? What did you mean by that?
Well, the one that is the intersection of all the other standards of proof. The non-trivial, the intersection of all the proof standards extant that are revered, I suppose, accepted, acknowledged.
So like non-solipsism, like the opposite of solipsism.
You could say counter-solipsism. You're never getting out of solipsism. We're ensconced in solipsism. Like, remember George Costanza with the velvet? It's just how it is. It's like, just be that guy who's just like, I'm happy to be in the velvet ensconcement. It's like, you never solve it. It's just you're cool with it. At some point, it's like, whatever. Why are we starting at that? Is the question. This isn't about whether we're living in the mind of God. It's about what is the thing we're most certain about with regards to our own questions of the universe. And it's, of course, the bottleneck is your own self-perception, whatever that may mean. That's the thing we can all agree we have. Fair enough? Well,
what about like empathy?
That's an attribute of that centralized consciousness. So you said empathy, right? That's what you said. You said empathy, not apathy, just making sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, empathy is an corporeal attribute of that fact that you have a centralized consciousness. The centralized consciousness is what allows for the channeling of the empathy. Right?
Towards other minds, right?
Well, towards yourself as well, towards whatever. A plant. A cat. It's a generic thing. So
understandable.
Well, that's so the question is like, put the question another way. What's the boundary between your consciousness and everything else? Seems like it should be there, but where is it? And if I can't find it, should I presuppose where it is? Isn't that kind of dumb?
That's an interesting thing because it's like, your influence on the world could end up being infinite throughout history, even just by like flicking a booger.
Okay, Mr. Chaos Theory. Is that what that is with the another atrocious metaphor?
I think it's
the butterfly thing.
I think it's compatible. No, I don't. I like that. I'll defend
metaphors are abstractions upon knowledge. One should never go for a metaphor unless one is desperately trying to convey a concept and the person's not getting it directly. You have to go on an abstraction.
I think it is helpful because
same with the thing of like, when should you embrace? Here's another question I want to know if people are listening. Stop. When to go full blank tard on hard solipsism? When to push the gas on hard solipsism? When is it appropriate to do that? Because it's almost never appropriate, right? Because look where it leads. This is garbage. Moral outrage prophet said eggs in the chat.
What's
that's
garbage?
Not a good sign. Hard solipsism. Okay. It's like nihilism. It's pure garbage, but it's like we have to acknowledge there's some garbage in the corner. What are we doing about it? So what's the answer?
What about like when you read a book?
I thought you were about to tell us the answer.
You're reading a book in the mind of God. It's a part of God too, and that still doesn't solve the problem of where is the boundary between you and everything else. The point is that you can't find it, and wherever you think it might be, you just be like, you can presuppose somewhere, but you're presupposing on the same level of certainty as certain people that you don't want to be on the level of certainty of certain people, do you?
I don't see how that's incompatible.
The egg story is, I'm so sorry. Go ahead. Finish what you're going to say. I'm going to try to get a metaphor.
No, I said I don't see how that's incompatible with what I was saying about how like the slightest thing you do can affect all of time in the future. But what the egg story? Where everyone is the same person or something?
No, literally nobody said that. The fact
Alright.
that you abstract that from what was said is just like
Well, no, it's
dial
probably
back.
a different story. It's probably a different story. I was thinking of something else. Go ahead.
Well, you just got to go one step. Why do you want to go 10 steps ahead? Go a couple
Because
steps.
my mind just
One
moves so
step.
fast. I'm like a super genius. You know what I'm saying?
Look, you're a special snowflake. I acknowledge you're super special. Let's please
Thank you.
just also acknowledge that I'm a dumbass and you need to go one concept at a time.
hmm
Anders, the theories are just like conceptually there's really no issue. It's just it's a misunderstanding, I think, on the level of definition. When you say something is falsifiable, you are tacitly presuming whatever definition is most coherent with what you know the root to that word to be, right? So falsifiable means it's possible to prove it false. Well, what can you prove false? It's like, well, if I say an an invisible unicorn, right? Can you prove that false? Well, it just depends what your standard of false is. If something's false, if there's no evidence to support it, then yeah, it's the unicorn's false that's invisible. So it's that balance of like, where does something go from being unfalsifiable to falsified when it meets a certain standard, right? And the standard is the thing that gets you not out of hard solid systems. You can't get out of hard solid systems, but it starts to gives you more certainty within a fundamentally uncertain framework, which is sometimes historically been analogized as a quote world egg, because it's meant to put as much of things in a picture together to fully encompass this concept, which is actually this thing that was brought up earlier, that space-time is emergent. And I can establish that by something called Hubble's law, which gives the result that distant galaxies are receding faster than the speed of light. So what does that mean in terms of special relativity?
Well, hold on.
Anders,
What
what
is
does it mean if distant galaxies are receding, measured to recede at faster than c? Go ahead if you want to give this a try, JD.
if it's receding faster than c, and you're moving the
And
other
what does
direction?
special relativity tell us?
Like if you were to look at it, it would
What does special relativity tell us?
nothing can exceed the speed of light.
Not quite. You're close. Starts with the letter A. Nothing can be A. You're on
Nothing can accelerate
good.
to this past the speed of light.
No, just to C.
Okay.
Nothing can accelerate to C. That's
Yeah, 'cause you
really
have to
that's
have
all that
infinite
that's
mass.
telling us.
Because you have infinite mass once you're
One of the reasons would be that, but there's also other reasons. That's like delta T goes to infinity. Delta X goes to 0. So there's all these things, right? It's like, well, what's taking over? I mean, you can sort of infer all those things to happen, but it's like, well,
It
what's the
breaks the
operating
quantum
mechanism? It's like,
computer.
well,
the quantum computer throws an exception if you try to go fast.
it's just it's one of the limit points, right, of the QC, because it pops out of the HF8. So if it's a limit point, what does that mean? What's HF8? Is the cosmic mind, right? Or the cosmic, like the fractal generated function of the cosmic mind.
I like the term like it's the perfect form.
It sounds like a pickup line. It sounds like a cheesy, greasy pickup line. Hey, baby.
It does. Well,
anyone ever tell you you're the perfect form?
Yours sounds like a cheesy pickup line.
Sure, it doesn't. Right. Anyway, back to the point is we can't accelerate stuff to see and such. However, we observe recessional velocities greater than c. What does this imply about the manner in which they came to be in that array? They weren't accelerated. Why?
They weren't accelerated because they were already
because we wouldn't be observing F and C, bozo. It's called logic. See, this is the thing. It's like, do you have any idea how depressing this is right now? Can you? I'll explain it again, but did anybody freaking catch what I just said?
Not really.
No. Okay. If you can't accelerate something to C, and we measure something as receding greater than C, that implies it couldn't have been accelerated to that array. Why?
And so that
Well-
means that we must have already been moving away from it.
Why can't it mean it was accelerated to that array?
I think you're saying, but it couldn't have.
Yeah, I don't think you
saying
can.
why.
I don't think you can even get to B at that point.
Okay, here's your axiom 1. It's impossible to accelerate something in a given reference frame to C. Should have
But you're
specified.
at B. You're at B from A. So how did you get from A to B? Just change the letters around.
Okay, are you familiar with special relativity?
Sort of, in a way, yeah.
So not at all.
I am, but I don't like to make it so obvious. But if whatever
Well-
questions you might have, I can try and relate.
I already transcended. I'm
I don't
asking
like
if
to
you're
make it
familiar
obvious.
with it.
I'm going to use that. I know, but I don't like to make it obvious.
The point is that it's decouples the relation. There's a way to basically prove using special relativity that it's impossible to accelerate something to C within a single, what I would call ether bubble, but which they call reference frame in the current understanding.
Like I said, I don't think you would even get from A to B, but you started at
So
B.
I
trying
don't
to
know what
figure
you
out how
mean
to
with
get to
A and
C.
B. So all I'm doing right now is I'm reasserting special relativity, which you claim to know about, but are going to keep on the down low because reasons, aka don't know anything about. I'm not faking
Well-
though. I literally do know this stuff.
No, yeah, but I'm trying to just kind of discord. But let's say you get from A to B.
What
And
the
you're
hell
trying
is
to-
A in this and B in this? You understand? I'm completely lost on what you're even saying here, right?
Because you're trying to get from B to C, right?
Again, going to a different letter doesn't clarify what A to B means. I feel like you're trolling now.
That you're trying to get from one point to the other one, but you can't. You've already put yourself in the middle of a point that you can't reach because you're reaching a certain.
I'm
a certain speed.
reasserting special relativity as an axiom. That's all. Like that's the first supposition of
Mhm.
my argument is special relativity is true.
Not necessarily, but I.
Well, yes, I'm telling you that it is. So Susskind is saying that special relativity is BS. We have pretty
No, he
darn good
isn't.
evidence that C.
Oh, Susskind pretty much assumes that everything Einstein said was true.
Einstein did not assert SR. Lorentz did. That's why it's called the Lorentz transformation.
Well, okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about, but it was popularized by Einstein more or less.
Yeah, but Lorentz agrees with Newton. You would have to have some kind of. You
Now,
would have some.
that is a very far bridge right there.
Yeah, because you have to have some points of emphasis. You can't say everything is relative without having, at the same time having what Einstein called like the starlights or the light candles in the sky. That he has to have some points of emphasis. So you know that
Another
some things.
shitty metaphor.
But wait,
Then
what
the-
did you mean by he agrees with Newton on what? On what point?
I know that was. Do you have any idea how large of a bridge you just crossed? You were like, I just crossed a 5,000-mile bridge, like it was like a baseball field.
It's based on points of references. So
You're saying that you're saying, okay, let's just presuppose that Newton and who had the same opinion. It's like, whoa, that was a bridge too far.
the Bents.
Skyzilla is asking a good question. Where does time fit into the equation? Time is like a stopwatch that stops every time there's an exclusion event. So we have not gotten anywhere with this because you're denying basic things about special relativity. Is somebody else feeding you lines? Because I know there's like a bunch of people who, and you said Discord a minute ago, so it's like I do forgive you if you got put up to this by a bunch of morons who thought that this would be a good plan. But even if a bunch of people team up on me at once, they're not going to win. I enjoyed taking on a bunch at once. It's the reverse Socratic G-bang, if you know what I'm saying.
The
point-
guy's coming across fairly genuine.
Are you sure? He's saying that Newton felt the same way as who? Einstein?
He doesn't
Holy
seem
shit.
argumentative, does he? Are you being? Do you think? What do you think of Jen's model?
He doesn't.
He doesn't.
This model that we're looking at right now?
Never mind.
This is an aspect of a model. This is not the entire model, but this is the manner by which you but you're not following the deduction. So the first thing we have to presuppose is that special relativity is true, and then we
But
observe it. What?
this has to do with more than Boltzmann. This would kind of fit Newton's model and Lebon's model because you have the reference, and the reference is a square. Everything's within something. It's not just going off the screen. It's literally
Well, all the great minds of history had a glimpse at the total answer, and I get to have the total answer.
Are you chewing
That
gum,
doesn't
bro?
mean they didn't discover anything, and that doesn't mean that they didn't help
my
me
bad.
and whatever. So it's not exclusive things.
No, I agree. I guess at that point I was just talking some history. I guess you can say conspiracy because
Oh, were you? Okay, so you wanted to get
Yeah.
off on your own topic. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to make a structured strategic argument with regards to the emergence of space-time, which is what someone's talking about in the chat. Time is not the prime mover. That's the key thing. The prime mover is a geometric entity called it's a numerological entity which gives rise to a pseudo-geometric entity, right? A pre-observational entity, these pure forms, okay? Numerology, pre-geometry, manifestational, quasi whatever else, bliggity black, right? But the point is that time's not on the fundamental level. Any way you slice it, space-time comes out of something else that is irreducibly complex, aka HF8 BFF.
yeah. Let's say that the universe is infinite, though. Where at one
I love
point
this question so
At what-
much.
at what point do you have something emerging like a property of time and
We have to
space?
define what emerging means. And I attempted to do that the other day and I got pretty far. There was emergent. And I was going to say that if the sum is greater than the parts for something, that you can establish that a composite system has a function that its parts, like that it like for example, we bake a cake. You'd say the cake is emergent because, you know what I mean?
Oh,
There's
Yeah, I
something
understand.
new there.
Interview.
But like if the universe is infinite, why didn't it already at one point become with space and time? Why did it have to come about or be like you said, emergent? How,
You want to know why time isn't the prime mover? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying? You want to know why time's not the prime mover? Because I need to know what is your actual question. Like, because if you're just off on if you're trying to get me to provide evidence to justify a pre-existing belief that you have, which is what most people I think are doing subconsciously without realizing it. So it's nothing particular to you. That won't work because logic's not a $2 whore.
It's not.
No, it's a princess. You got to take her out.
She's high maintenance.
Clip clop. What is that? The carriage. Oh, that doesn't even
You're
come
always
close to
paying
covering
for
it.
it, kid.
Exactly. In a good way, though. You don't regret it.
why?
Well, it's important. I actually did start talking about why time wasn't why time can't be the prime mover. Do you want me to explain why time can't be the prime mover? I sense that's what your question is, pseudonym, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Not necessarily, but I'm willing to listen. I'm kind of curious on this one.
Well, it seems like time is the cause of change, right? I mean, do we have any evidence that time is not the unique cause of change? It seems like it does, because you look at your watch, it's like, yep, that's why things are happening the way I feel like they are. But then you got to think about what does time mean, and do you know how old the planet is measured to be?
An infinite
5
amount of years.
4.5 billion approximately. I don't want to, get crazy about the exact number, but that's approximately what people say that it's measured to.
And we think.
Do you agree that that's representing something?
But life is in the millions of years, right? I know you're talking about Earth.
Life's been around since the first 80s. Life's been around for 86% of the time span of the planet. And according to the T-Jump Brigade, that saying life arose almost instantly when that's representing 0.7 billion years is spectacular. So I'll rephrase it to, did a baseline existed for like 86% of the history of our planet or some stuff and shiz.
Well,
What do
hold
you
on,
guys
hold
think
on.
about
Wait,
that?
wait, wait. If life has been around longer, doesn't that hurt your theory? Because then the random mutations would have a lot longer to appear.
You still haven't established that randomness exists, so I'm not too worried.
well,
if you know what I
there's
mean.
randomness, like from radiation experiments and stuff.
A distribution, statistical distribution. That's not randomness. That's a statistical distribution.
Well, but it's random
It's
in the
not
sense
random.
that,
The fact that you can identify a distribution, that's not random.
but
That's
within, then there's noise within it though. Like the
The most you
margin
can
of
have
error.
is like white noise, right?
The margin of
Uncorrelated
error
signal.
is
But even if it's
the random part.
uncorrelated signal, you have the information that it's a signal. You have the fact that it exists in a 3+1 dimensional causality. You have non-trivial information dynamics about the system. Off
So
the hop,
you
okay?
so you don't believe in true randomness?
You do?
No, but like the way you talk about,
Okay. What happened? What's the lesson from free will?
like I'm
What did we learn about
borderline
the
like
free will
hidden
thing?
variable theory type
What did we
guy,
learn when we
but
went
that's
into
okay.
free will? We learned that no matter how real it feels, that's no reason to presuppose that it's real.
Feels
The only
aren't
thing we can
real.
presuppose reasonably is real is solipsism, which is
Mhm.
that the thing which is we're most certain about is self, i.e., an ordering principle of a centralized thing, one of the attributes of which is, our friend said, empathy. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah. There's no getting over that. I mean, empiricism acknowledges that, I think, to some extent. It's like something you can verify with your senses. Heck yeah, Bubbles. What did you think I was going to stop? It's like, no. We're just
Well,
getting
let me-
started, bud. Go ahead.
Let me ask you, Jen, because you said earlier that the universe is 4.6 million years old.
I did
Wouldn't
not
that
say
kinda-
that.
A billion, I think she said.
I said our planet has been measured to be 4.5 billion, according. I was trying to explain why time's not the prime mover.
Well, I think they mean by like the universe is 4.6.
No, the
Billion
universe
or
is
something?
like 13 billion. I think that they say 13
empathy.
billion is the age, but that's not. That's the observable interval of time, like the lifetime of, along the idea of the lifetime of Brahma. It's an attribute of, again, the universe and the measurement limit, not absolute time. Daytime, nighttime. It's a cycle, not absolute thing. Cycles aren't absolute.
I'm gonna get something to drink. I'll be right back.
Bubbles is not happy about empathy. Yeah, I understand the whole empathy thing. It's easy for empathy to become imbalanced / maladaptive. So denying it, that's bad karma, because empathy is good, sensitivity is good, but you got to balance it. So you got to respect it for what it is. Good attribute, but easily imbalanced. So that's where artists often fall off the path, because they're just so much inspiration and they don't ground themselves, and it's tough life. But yeah, you can't just barf on empathy, Bubbles. It's got to be a little more nuanced than that, I think. What were you asking just a minute ago? Pseudonym?
Oh, no, I apologize. I got the. I thought you said the universe, but I understand you said the Earth.
Oh, yeah. Like I'm not like a crackpot or anything. I'm not like a turtles all the way down thing. Unless
Okay.
turtle is a metaphor for skull, right? Teehee. So, I'm really glad you like my debate though, because it shouldn't have been as long. I think I got the mistaken impression that it hadn't been going as long as that. It was like almost 3 hours. It really should have been wrapped up after, I'd say, 2 hours and 15 minutes. I just couldn't. What took it so long? I'm like literally slightly afraid to rewatch it.
I think it was the super chats. Usually, I think the super chat took about an hour to an hour and a half of the whole thing going on. Because I know James usually keeps his debates between like an hour and a half, unless he has multiple.
Juicy. So you've been around since the beginning, eh? That's
In a way,
awesome.
yeah.
I feel like I've been around for a while, but definitely not the beginning. But it was definitely not that big of a channel. Like it was drunk Neffy 50 to 75% of the time. And James
Yeah.
like sweating heavily right now. It's like so professional, and his logo looks like Dr. Hoomst, and it's just ultra nice and smooth AF.
Yeah. I remember a lot of T Jump, and that was pretty much, I think, his fam or his mascot. But it worked out. I guess it worked out.
For me, I mean, or for them.
Oh, for both. For both.
Oh, wonderful. Oh yeah, disease. Yeah, that has to do with something called dosha, which translates as kink, or that which becomes imbalanced. So it's like, but it's also attributes of personality. So there's this thing. It's like your humorism is also your fundamental thing that tends to go out of balance, aka causes illness. So it's sort of reinforcing my point, right?
Yeah, I heard somewhere that disease is like pretty much the disassociation of ease or the separation of ease. So instead of being ease or at ease, you're diseased.
You're using the same logic as I used with unfalsifiable. We need a word for that type of thing. It's like a phonetic deconstruction. You could, argue and hypothesize that people really can't not do this type of thing because the recognition of word forms is probably not entirely fully conscious, like partially subconscious driven thing, just like emotions. Another thing that's like hard solipsism is like that's even more important than hard solipsism. Hard solipsism on its own is not really important until you get into cosmology. It's pretty much meaningless. Like if we do live in the mind of God, everyone has always lived in the mind of God. What the hell does that even? What difference does it even make? Sup, memes? Nice to see you, buddy. You should come on, memes. Sorry, I had to mute myself for a second. Truth is, I had to burp there. I'm fine now, though. So you think I'll be able to come back on the show a whole bunch now?
Depends on the topic. What other topics do you think you can debate on? Or I think that was evolution, but what would you be like your next interest?
Well, I'm a principled person, so like I care about minimizing the suffering. So if there was a topic that would likely minimize suffering, I would love to debate on it. And I find a lot of the topics are just like a bit of a snooze fest. It's like the Titanic. Was it the Titanic or the Myromantic or the Bubblyantic or whatever? Ended up just being like off in the weeds. It's like, why are we debating? It's like, no. So I would love to debate just honestly metaphysics or physics or whatever, but James said I shouldn't talk about my theories. It's too complicated. So it's like, well, that's not going to work either. But it's like, I could just take a break from the modern day debate because James is too like crispy for me. What is it like starchy? And then just go on the T jump, you know,
So besides,
blanked streams for a while and just sort of see how it goes. And then maybe I'll think of something that makes sense because like, I don't want to upset anybody, or cause any, feathers to get ruffled, if you know what I mean. Do you have any suggestions of what I should blunder in there with?
well, I'm just curious, like what besides dualism and non-dualism, what would you think is your what would you say? What would you be willing to argue as far as metaphysics?
I would argue hard solipsism or, that's a really good question. It might be one of those things where maybe we should just like wait a little bit
But what would you
and see
debate?
how people's perspective evolves. And based on where the audience is at, like just read the audience, like get a little practice ourselves because you're a mod, right? Like
Right.
take the opportunity to do a little bit of neural net agnostic training because like agnosticism is a metaphor for why neural nets work because they're agnostic until they converge to the eigenstates. And the neural nets know when they can converge, right? Because they have a truth data and all they need is for every next iteration not to be any more accurate. They can cheat. We can't cheat. We have to again, appeal to authority to know when to converge the model. But we shouldn't just jump to the conclusions, right? The fact that we all just want to jump to conclusions is probably a good sign we should inhibit that reflex. Memes, you gotta come on, or Bubbles. One of you two's gotta come on, and even if just for 1 minute. Harpocrates, if it was the cat, that's the story. But in a way, it's like, it's kind of epic that it happened. I don't really think it changes anything, though. Yeah, talk with Kurjai Mungal. I already did talk to him, and I'm going to talk to him on his show. And I think the plan is to have me go on before the end of the year. But Kurt is a delicate genius, and I mean that in a good way. So whenever it happens, it's all good, and there's no pressure. But I think it'll be fun. I think the dude was kind of talking about it too today, about wondering how long I was going to have a combo with Kurt for. It's like forever, probably. Oh, hell yeah.
Hey, what's happening?
Just don't torpedo my stream. Don't say stuff that you said. Don't say risky stuff. Okay, let's just keep it. Keep it Catterday friendly, and yeah. I'm happy to see you, Bubbles. What's up, man?
I just got up to like eat something. I was like, my tummy had the rumblies and it wasn't letting me sleep.
It was a sign. It was just like, I gotta come get some knowledge on the stream with 10 people now. What time is it? Is it like the middle of the night or something?
Yeah, it's like 3 a.m. It's the spooky hour.
It's the witching hour, and I'm trying to like explain to people why the hyperbolic figure eight is a model for entangled space-time, and that it's the minimum ingredient in that entangled space-time is the irreducibly complex quantum mind of the universe. It's like the universe is unconscious, So Tej always said. But it's like, doesn't this kind of prove that it is conscious because we found its mind? Like, let's say hypothetically. Go ahead.
So like, the entanglements are like neurons in a brain, or what is this about?
Well, entanglement means tied together. So like a rope.
Oh, is this like Einstein's like action at a distance that he couldn't figure out?
That's action at a distance. I would call that a something that is observed.
Okay. So this is different. Okay.
Whoa. Well, it's not a model. A model would be we observe instantaneous action at a distance, aka some type of a hidden variable situation. We observe that, and we're going to speculate that this model, aka simple geometry predicting a more complicated outcome, is the cause of it. Oh my god, it just sounded like T-Jump in my explanation there.
Well, I mean, I think ether pretty much explains action at a distance. Like,
ether really doesn't, though. Ether is just volume with no mass in it. So ether on its own is just like smoke another one. It's like ether is like only really good if you've had 10 grams of mushrooms as a combo topic. Like, it's literally just it's just volume with no matter in it. So it's...
Okay, this is how somebody explained it to me, and it's real simple. Okay, get something cylinder, like anything around that you can grab, like cylinder and long. Okay, tell me when you got it.
What the fuck are you talking about, dude? You're gonna give me a metaphor for ether who literally says what I'm not even looking. I'm telling you, I've got no reference for it. I'm telling you, I asked God what ether is. You're not gonna change my mind.
No, for action at a distance.
I know what action at a distance is. It's when two things that are not close to each other are coupled in their motion. That's all it is. It's a description. That's all.
Oh no, I'm gonna tell you how like this relates to ether.
Okay, well, how does it relate to ether? Just tell us right away.
Well, okay, it's easier like if you get an example, because it helps visually.
See, another shitty fucking metaphor. That's what I keep talking about. Who are you talking to, JD?
No, it's an example. It's a little experiment you can do. Like anybody can do this.
Do what?
Like it's a way to try to explain how ether and action are at distance, or like how they relate.
Do you know what ether is? I mean, is there any reasonable reason
It's-
to think that you know what ether is? Or is
It-
there a reasonable reason to think I know what it is on account of my theory, which we haven't been able to get through due to numerous disruptions, predicts Hubble's law and invokes ether as a fairly simple concept of just negative space, aka volume without mass. Because there's an etheric field, right, which you could call an etheric volume.
yeah, I mean when they discover the Higgs boson, that's ether.
Well, no, it's not. It's something that is dependent upon HF8. So what Thad, in a way praised Thad, what he's done is pretty impressive. Sort of made it possible for me to really avoid a lot of BS if he's right. Because he's managed to predict not just the fundamental, of which there are 5 observables, but all the derivative observables, like quarks and stuff. So if everything is predictable vis-a-vis a single shape, that means that the single shape is the fundamental attribute, not the derivative measurements, right? Am I talking
shape.
to a wall here?
No, I'm trying to figure out what. Because I'm trying to figure out like how does a figure of 8 fit into this?
You just have to sort of let go of the expectation that you can visualize HF8. You can't visualize metaphysics. You can reason in metaphysics. You can only visualize physics, because physics is physical correspondence, whereas metaphysics is framing physical correspondence. Like, people were trolling me in the debate about like saying something was beyond truth. Like, what I'm trying to say is that for something to be true, you have to define parameters of truth.
Mm-hmm.
So what's true? Well, it's that which accords with reality. And what accords with reality? It's like, well, that's just sort of a pretty big question.
Yeah.
So what accords with reality is hard solipsism. And how do you get out of hard solipsism is an appeal to authority. And by that point in the reasoning process, completely rational, completely tight, we've lost people like T-Jump. Because they think it's possible to make assertions that don't hinge on faith.
Yeah, well, yeah, because might as well say just might is right, and TJ doesn't want
another one of these goon assertions with no proof whatsoever that applies to beetles and cockroaches. It's like,
well, I mean, we're just appealing to the might of God. TJ doesn't want to appeal to the might of God.
Appealing to the might of God is not a good way to do it. I wouldn't do that. You say eventually, I sound like Claire Caw. Like, why does Claire fail? Because she just doggedly, tirelessly clings to indefensible positions. And then it's like, woe is me. The consequences of my indefensible positions have caught up with me. It's like, unsurprisingly so.
But I mean, aren't you like appealing to the might of the universe?
Isn't it okay to appeal to dear God?
Yeah, it's fine. I would say it's the same thing. If from your perspective, like I don't know which God it is.
Right. Well, the God I'm referencing is the one that we can't disprove the solipsism of. Like, we can't, like, can you disprove the idea that you and I are both different branches on the same root all personality tree?
Nah.
There's some root personality that is you and I are like on the tree of and different branches type thing. Like, can we disprove that, or is that just something that is a metaphysical aesthetic that's not true or false? It's something that would later make things true or false. That's all.
No, I can't.
Did I lose anybody on that? Did I actually? Sorry, rather than did I lose anybody, did I keep anybody on that? It's back to this monad thing, right? Like, what is this actually telling us? Like this thing here. What is this thing actually telling us? These are actually all pretty good images here, but the best one I think is this one.
Yeah, I mean, like I see symmetry. I see a mind.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's like, what are the qualities of a mind? And if people aren't going to do that before the debate, it's going to turn into what it was with Claire and Teach, which is this like, well, I analogized or metaphorized or whatever as two scorpions stinging each other to death. When two people try to Socratically one up each other, that's what it's eventually going to go into, like screeching. I can't believe I'm still alive either. No, just kidding. I'm not surprised at all. I love talking about this stuff. Like this subject is so interesting. So all monadology is saying is that the reason these things all look the same is that there's one resonance corresponding to all of them.
Have you ever heard of Theoria Apophysis? He's like a YouTuber.
Yeah, Potato Head. I know him. I should call him Potato Head too, because Sri Dharma Pavardika Potato Head Acharya is number one. So congratulations, you're on my pile. But I don't know. I mean, he's just got this dourness. Like, why is there always this dourness?
I think he's pretty funny. I like the guy.
Well, I guess my opinion is going to depend on what he thinks about my opinion on stuff. If he thinks I'm cool and then I'm right about everything, I might be like, okay, Potato Head 2, you're cool. But if he's going to be like, excellent, and then he tries to like dismiss or Socratize me, it's going to be like,
No, he's not that. Yeah, but he's not that kind of guy.
how do you know this? Have you talked to him?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay, what's he like then?
He's just like a real chill. He does alligator skins now.
What the heck does that mean, alligator skin?
Oh, he makes things out of alligator skins. So he's just like talking about that now. He's just
Alligator
like-
skins?
Yeah, he's just like a normal guy. He's just like,
As long as he's not making pronouncements on my wife or treating her in any way like a $2 whore, I'm okay.
no, he's like, his wife passed away, so you can tell he's not looking for anything. Yeah.
I want to like him. He's just so dang dour. And he takes the Anada. He goes full netty.
No, that's just a
And
flat earth.
it's like
That's that's a flat earthers trying to get him on his side. But every time the flat earthers try to like get him on his side, he's like, "You guys are loonies."
oh, well, empiricism supports flat Earth, so why do I have to be the only one to make these rather obvious connections? Can anybody acknowledge that, or is it just going to be another 300 comments saying I'm crazy?
You believe in flat Earth?
What did I just say here again? What's with the straw dinosaurs here? I said empiricism supports flat Earth. I didn't say I
Oh.
believe. Does that would imply I'm an empiricist? Am I? No, I accept the traditional axioms.
Okay.
Empiricism is not on that list. We can't even agree. I was on the Teach stream and I said, "What do you mean by empirical?" Two different people gave completely two different answers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That was actually based because it got me out of having to define the term or engage with it in any way, shape, or form. So
Okay.
it was, I don't know what you'd call that. Perhaps a Socratic shakedown.
Mm.
The problem, Ariel, is not empiricism or whatever. It's the fact that different domains literally define this term differently. Like when I think of empirical evidence, I think of like little tick marks coming out of a machine. As in, there's no question that those tick marks came out of that machine. Yeah, there's a whole other thing of calibrating said machine. And ideally, there'd be a metaphysical undertaking to interpret the results and meaning of said machine. Okay? But when I think empiricism, I think results whose meaning is not questioned on the level at which they're being computed. Fair enough? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's what, I mean, I think it's important that we fold the definitions into the most authoritative field, aka physics, unless we can find a more authoritative field. Right, so you got to look at who's representing what field, right? Like, what field is logical, floggable, blobbable representing?
Yeah.
So whatever that is, we want to stay away from it, right? I mean, he's misrepresenting logic in order to support a theological position. He's doing what people claim I'm doing, but it's like, no, I'm not doing that. I just understand that logic comes from theology, so I'm explaining it in a more proximal manner to said theology so that people can accord it the proper respect and not end up in a problem. Like, does anyone actually think philosophy, our understanding of philosophy, is getting better with time?
It would
Since
have to,
when-
yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah, like it would have to. Yeah.
Well, you really think philosophy, like, when would you say was peak philosophy?
Uh,
Today or
I would
400 years
actually-
ago?
I would say the 70s.
And what would be the, like, signs of it? Like, do you have a thinker in particular who sort of embodies that peak or whatever?
Well, I think that one of the peak debates that ever happened was Foucault versus Chomsky.
On
This was like some sort of French or Belgium program, so it's not like it wasn't broadcast on like American TVs.
Okay.
You can find it on YouTube though.
I am not familiar with that combo.
But yeah, because in that debate, Chomsky is appealing to like innate morality, and
What feels?
evolutionary morality.
I mean, what is
Big
innate
bro.
morality if not Mafeels?
It is,
What?
somebody once asked Chomsky if he believed in like gods and angels, and he just like he rejected to answer that, which implies yeah he does.
It's like, when have I ever tried to, appeal to these things? If I don't need to, why do they need to? That's
Well-
all I'm saying.
Yeah, people have their own different versions of God.
Just when you have to invoke these emotional special pleading, I get all ugh. Anders says that he thinks philosophy and science has gone off into incredible tangents because they don't start with a sound understanding of what time is. Yeah, it's where time emerges in causality. So is time indistinguishable from causality? It
Yes,
cannot be. It is impossible because we have a time interval which we can agree is the amount of time, which is not it's something that's eventually going to run out. This is heat death thing. Time runs out is the point. Is that every time interval that's ever existed has a beginning and therefore an end. Therefore, time cannot be the beginning. There is no beginning, is the point.
So,
right?
so will causality come to an end?
No, causality is the quote beginning.
Mhm.
But beginning is something that we've defined as humans as being relative to space-temporal arrays that causality doesn't define on its primordial level. And that was the whole
Okay.
point of bringing it in with the cosmology and saying, well, hey, look, we have this condition for inertia for a single reference frame. You can't accelerate mass to c, but we have evidence of mass receding greater than c. Not just that, the farther it is, the faster it's receding. It's amazing that could be happening. That's like, wouldn't that make you kind of feel you're in the center of the universe if everything's moving away from you and faster the farther away it is? But that's why it's, in a way, evidence for us being in the mind of God. This impression that we're in the center, all however many billion of us here, all feeling we're in the center of the universe. Pretty impressive simulation. It's better than a shitty-o game. The point I'm saying is that when a star is born, that represents a particular event where that star is now at a very high energetic level, and it's eventually going to slip back to 0 point energy adjacent state. So it goes to a super high energy level relative to everything around there, and everything simulated or generated or whatever, created with very, very broad, quotes, is adjacent to the 0 point energy. But when you have an exclusion event like with a star, as in the gravity collapse, excluded matter because there's no more room, because there's maximum density in the universe, some ether was created. So it's not arbitrary how much ether there is, as the Einstein formulation would have you think, with the notion of being able to abstract a inertial reference frame. You can't do that because the ether is not arbitrary. It's absolutely fixed, dependent on etheric fields, which are dependent on manifest velocities of stars, right? Not Bueller, again, it's like Bueller. So the point is that from what we can conclude on Earth, so how did I do this? So we've got special relativity reasonably tight, pretty dang tight. So what I can conclude, therefore, is that anything violating what special relativity predicts can't share the axioms of special relativity, right? So the solar system cannot be a single reference frame, right? Therefore, we have to look to why would there be different reference frames being caused, right? Or the alternative, the stars aren't massive. Anybody want to say that option 2 is likely?
Well,
Anybody want to go with option 2? I mean, JD, speak now or forever hold your peace there, bud. Bueller?
the thing is, like, we just have to like, because special relativity is like atomist, and
Okay, it's just saying that nothing massive can be accelerated to the speed of light within a single reference frame. That's all special relativity is saying. That's not general relativity. General relativity is more presuppositions and a generalized approach to gravity. It's not special relativity. Special relativity has to do with, it should actually be called the speed of constancy of light. What that theory is saying is that the space and temporal observables are derivative of light speed, fundamentally.
But hey, I have trouble like calling light a speed. It's an induction rate.
Okay, you're taking the authority of a guy who looks like a potato. Does that concern you? Do you have any idea how perfect my abs are? Maybe I should compare my abs with your current idols, and then you'd be like, "Why are you following potato versus like a literal 2 6-packs?"
Well, he's right about. He's right
How
about
do you
it.
know? Isn't the person who's right going to be the one with the better 6-pack?
Well, no, this is from Tesla. He got it from Tesla.
What the fuck does Tesla have to do with the fact that Elon Musk runs a company with his name today? That means Tesla was right. It's like, how do you know Tesla was right?
No, because Tesla himself stated that it's
So what?
it's
Again,
like
you are
sound.
doing you're doing what the skeptics do. This is not skeptical. This is an appeal to authority.
Well, yeah, well, like we're not. I'm not appealing to nobody here. I'm appealing to like the Godfather of.
Tesla's not the godfather of this stuff. Okay, I mean, I'm sorry, but he hasn't even made it to my list of the biggest contributing scientists. Like, I don't know what Tesla contributed to put him on my list. I didn't.
Yeah, I would say. I mean,
and I have a lot of people on that list. Like, I really did try to include as many people as I could. Like, I have a partial list here with 8 people on it, and he's not on it.
who do you got there? John Jack.
Maybe he actually was on that list. He was on my No, Jean Lejean. Okay, I have Boltzmann, Cauchy, de Bragg, Faraday, Flea, Gauss, Grassmann, Heisenberg, Le Chatelier, Leibniz, Lorentz, Maclaurin, Maxwell, Noether, Pauli, Planck, Taylor, and Steve Wozniak, because I really like my Max. I'm sorry, Tesla. What did Tesla do? Boy, Tesla. It's like you're in a what is this literal? Sorry, just say I don't dick ride Elon Musk either. I'm just saying. Sorry, go ahead. Say.
Well, I mean, he's responsible for a lot of inventions. I can't deny that.
What the fuck? Are you dick riding Tesla for, man?
I mean, what did Einstein ever invent?
What did okay. You insulting Einstein doesn't mean you weren't just dick riding Tesla. So let's just address one fallacy at a time. Oh my god. What is the fallacy here? That's the whole point. Like, what's Tesla's authority?
We gotta deny his inventions. Okay, what did
a straw dinosaur by position? Like, think about how many different presuppositions did you have to go through to make that conclusion from my opinions?
Okay, what did Einstein say about Tesla?
I actually don't know what
He's
does it matter though. Like, what does it matter what he said? We should focus on the ideas. Like, it's not about people.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. We should like Tesla
So
the
why
potato.
are you bringing up Tesla as if to dick ride Tesla? It's like
No,
every
'cause-
time you talk about Tesla, I just can't stop thinking about Elon Musk.
Not Elon Musk.
I'm really sorry. I'm just dying here. Let's change the topic to an actual idea. I don't understand what the deal is with Tesla. Whatever, you know. You can feel free to disagree with me. I've done a lot of research, and his like what he did was not terrible. I'm not saying he's a loser. I'm just saying it's not as big of a new development as what some of these other people did.
It was definitely better than Einstein.
And I don't agree with Einstein's take either. I don't really credit him with much. Because it doesn't have any relation to what I developed. So I'm just saying, like, all the ones who did something in relation to what I developed, like, there's nothing that I developed that I needed to lean on Tesla for, is my point. This is the first time hearing of what you're saying here, Anders. I'm not too sure. Yeah, it's like, I mean, I'm not anti-Tesla. I'm not anti any of these people. I'm pro-science. I'm glad what happened, but it's like, what am I supposed to give, like a conciliation prize? No. I'll acknowledge the people who genuinely did something, and everybody else will, nice try. Otherwise, what I say has no meaning. Does it? You having some cereal there, Bubbles?
A big bowl of rice, like a literal big bowl.
Nice. What do you think I should try to debate on the show, Pseudonym? Do you have any suggestions for me? Like, what would actually get me accepted into a debate? Because I'm sort of open to suggestions if I can keep the topic in a positive way or whatever.
Maybe Einstein versus Tesla.
I'll debate you on that. I'll fight you.
Hello.
Yo.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How y'all doing now?
Come back from a nap.
The problem with that, I'm afraid, is that Einstein's theory is extremely difficult to access. So the balancing would be challenging to get to a point where has the audience been familiarized with the concepts sufficiently well that it actually makes sense to go into them, to actually explore them, like. And then there's the question of like, what did Tesla think? Right. So
I have a
there's
comment
lot
on
of
ether
supposition.
whenever you're ready.
Yeah, no, I'd love to hear it, but I mean, I will think more about it. And actually, well, Pseudonym, did you want to give any more thoughts before we go over to JD, or because I am more interested, like in basically whatever you have to say. So honestly, hop in any time. It's sort of informal.
No, you're fine. I'm listening.
All right, yeah. The thing with ether is that I feel it's like painfully obvious that something like it must be true, because when people talk about the curvature of space-time warping, what the fuck does that even mean? What is warping? Like, how can that explain why things are attracted to each other if there is no medium through which everything is resting?
Base.
And that's it. That's it.
Okay.
That's my argument for ether. And I'm not advocating.
It's unfalsifiable, right?
Any
Okay, here's the thing,
specific
it's
version.
Like, could you imagine right now if somebody asked you to prove ether? What would you say?
We just pointed at the Higgs boson. That's what
just give them the finger and say, "Can you see what finger I'm pointing up right now?"
Yeah.
And then they'll say yes, and you say,
well,
"Why?"
yeah, and they'll talk
and
about
say,
that experiment from
right.
They'll talk about that experiment from the 50s where they had like a fucking, what was it? It looked like the thing that farmers have with the wind. They're like, oh, we spam.
What the fuck are
we spun this thing around, and it didn't. The wind was the same from every direction, so there's no ether. That was the.
Prove it. It's like, can you prove? Yeah, seriously, just do the middle finger test. Give them the
Yeah.
finger. Ask them if they can see it, and if they say yes, to say congratulations, you just proved the ether.
There you
And
go.
then say, I'm sorry, I've shifted the burden of proof because you saw when I gave you the finger, and it wasn't just obscured. And the only way that's possible is
Nicholson
if it's
Morley
mostly
experiment.
ether.
They
Okay, so
this
we have to be
thing-
careful with these concepts like ZPE because sometimes they're used to invoke magical thinking. Okay, like vacuum fluctuations. It's like that's not saying anything. It's just some random words. It's like, okay. So this idea ZPE can't be canceled out. ZPE is like the fact that an electron has a specific mass and it's always the same mass. So the quantum of that particular type of electric flux or whatever is that way. How can you cancel out the electron? You can't cancel out an electron. You can have a countervailing action to an electron, a proton. It's sort of like with the hard solipsism thing. It's like you don't ever stop hard solipsism. You just, what was that movie where I was going to say Al Pacino's The Devil with Keanu Reeves, right?
Devil's
And the
Advocate?
wall that comes alive, the devil's advocate thing. You can sort of start to reach out of the canvas, but you're going to be part of the canvas forever. It's just like, it doesn't matter because everybody's in the same canvas. You could choose to live that canvassy, horrible life of infinite God solipsism any way you want. If you want to dick ride a guy who's been dead for a lot of years because of science that you don't know what it is. And whatever, that's fine, but I'm not going to do that. If I'm gonna dick ride a guy from the distant past, it's not gonna be Nikola Tesla. Woo! Sorry, I'm just.
Duvit is so mad at your laughing right now.
She's
gonna come back on the stream.
I'm giggling like a schoolgirl because I'm just trying to be polite to my pal Duvit, but he's challenging at times.
Now, I looked up ether. There's such an arrogant article title here. The Eternal Quest for Ether, the cosmic stuff that never was. Written by someone
No
who
doubt.
probably doesn't actually understand it.
Well, did Plato know that the monad was trinary? Like, did they know that? Was that what they meant by the Holy Trinity was the Holy Sphere? I doubt it.
Yeah.
You could say, yeah, they did know, but it's like, nah. I mean, how they knew it or whatever, maybe within a different set of parameters, perhaps. A subjectively oriented manner of knowing same essential truth, maybe. But I mean, it's I would say impossible to speculate at this point on something like that. Think of the fluctuation as random, quote
Unfalsifiable.
unquote, and the net effect is canceling out. When the fluctuations are aligned, then presto, ZP bombs can split Earth in two that Tesla talked about. Wow.
What did he talk about?
Well, it's just levels of dick riding I didn't think were possible. It's like, how many... Okay.
Didn't Tesla claim that he was communicating with Mars or something crazy?
Yeah, allegedly. But I think that was
I'm the one with the schizo word salads, right? And he was on Mars. And people are dick riding him all this time.
Well,
now.
I mean, there's a distinction between
If you're gonna dick
before and
ride
after
guys
he went
across
crazy.
Time and lifetimes, pick a better
Wait, hold
guy.
on 1 second though. A lot of these famous scientists and stuff, later in life, they had been exposed to radiation or chemicals from all the work they'd done, and so you can't compare. You can't compare like at the end of their life they had some wacky shit and be like, oh, well, see, they're full of shit,
oh, it's the Mad Hatter effect. Making all those hats with mercury.
Yeah, I don't judge based on the person. I judge based on the idea.
You're like, oh yeah,
person
Madame
is a
Curie, she
side
wasn't
effect of
very
the
smart.
idea.
She fucking died from the radiation. Stupid bitch.
I don't consider her contributions. I mean, a lot of people died I don't consider death to be necessary for me to acknowledge someone. I have to acknowledge
that had
infinity.
nothing to
People
do with
do that.
it.
It's like Emmy No Ether is the only girl that contributed, and actually what she contributed was on the level of like one of the more fundamental attributes with the
Who are you talking
proto-canonical
about?
conjugation relation type thing. The very fundamental law she came up with is very impressive. Emmy Noether, I think it's pronounced, or Noether. I'm not sure. It's German, not exactly sure on the pronunciation.
All right, just send it to me on Skype. I'll check it out. My cat's staring out the window again. He's probably looking for his buddy.
All right, I'm gonna head out. I'm done with my food.
Thanks for joining and
Alright.
giving your thoughts. And
All right, Bubbles.
maybe you can recommend that I do more debates on. Maybe I should go to Tej and just do the dark alley debates for a while with Socratic blind sites, and work my way up to MDD again, where pseudonym can vouch for me.
Q.
Bubble has to
Thanks
go
for
back to
coming
the strip club. Get
Well, you know where I won't be going back is the Claire Caw place. It's like, how many hours did I put in there? And then finally it's like, I'm done.
What's
Oh.
that picture of her with the?
Let's not.
Oh, I'll look it up.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not going to predicate my theories on randomness because it goes against my religion, and I know my religion's right. If you don't like that, whatever. I choose to dick ride my religion, and I'm happy with my decisions. I even have a meme for it. It's really good. I could probably share it right now. I've got the Emmy Noether thing as well, so I'll throw that up right now. Oh, did you want me to add your thing? Okay. Oh, not this. Is anyone actually like? I don't even friggin' understand what this is saying.
the experiment?
No, I don't understand and never have what this is even saying. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
My brain is a pile of
I
steaming garbage.
used to like back when I was really into the whole ether idea. I used to try to like think about what they got wrong or whatever. But I feel like what I said a couple minutes ago is basically I want someone to answer that challenge. Like what's warping? If the whole answer is that it's, weight and gravity comes from space-time warping, what is warping?
It's like a wormhole.
It's a nonsensical right thing.
Yeah,
man.
wormhole.
Why
yeah,
is
what
it
are you going
nonsensical?
through? What is it? What is it
Why
that
is it
you're?
nonsensical?
What do you mean?
Why is it nonsensical?
Because
Can
if there's
bending
no,
occur
if
on a
there's
metaphysical
no,
level, or is bending a product of physicality? You understand that in the monad there can't be a distance, right? Because distance is emergent.
okay, so that would be an explanation.
Well, what does it take to get to distance, right? It takes space-temporality reduction to the point of an individuation. Several things
Is
have
there a
to
way to
happen
like
before you
hack
can
into
define
it
that.
so that we don't have to have distance?
I
You can
just
hack
told
into
you
it.
The monad doesn't define distance. That is something which is abstracted with what they call the demiurge. The monad is the minimum energy latent residual, whatever. Call it a ZP or a basis. I think basis vector is the best thing to call it. Back to algebra, as you can see. Good times. So what's the point of this Michelson Morley, just out of curiosity?
No, I brought it up. You don't have to keep it on the screen if you don't want to.
Well, why? I mean, I'm happy to talk about it. I just don't know what you want to say.
It was when we were. It was from a couple minutes ago. I was like, oh, just if people want to know the thing I was referring to. Here, I'll go back a little.
I know it's the setup for Michelson Morley, but I'm telling you, like, I don't understand it.
Yeah,
And it's basically seems to be the same thing as a Sonac effect, which is assuming some sort of like unpresumed radial symmetry in a light field. Like I don't even know what it's assuming, and it's just supposed to be some sort of evidence for ether, and it's just like okay.
Why don't we just
have fun with that?
We can revisit it later because I would have to read through and like maybe watch a video about it again and then.
Yeah, that's basically the worst thing you could do. Bring a subject you know nothing about and then foist it on me to try to interpret it at the last second. That's the
Why do you have to
anti-Duvid.
interpret it that way? I was just saying this is my
Well,
comment.
think about
on
what I'm
Ether.
used to, which is Duvid, which is prepared a huge pile of stuff to go through. You're just saying you've got one thing, you're just lobbing it at me. It's like I don't know what to do with it.
You were like, "Oh, JD, what do you have to say?"
And you're saying, okay, but you're saying Michael Morley, and I'm saying, what is this even saying? And you're saying,
Well, supposedly it proves that there is no ether. That's what they're. That's the claim.
Talk me through how that works.
I said I wanted to go back to it later because I need to read through it again and like get my mind.
So the
around
fact
it.
that it's so inaccessible, nebulous, and vague as a proof should be. Does that give you a bit of pause?
Well, you're only agreeing with my contention that it's not. It doesn't debunk the ether, which is what I'm saying.
I'm not sure ether's debunkable. It's just negative space. It's definitional. So you're saying there's no negative space. Like, well, what the heck is it if there's no negative space? I didn't think that was something you could argue against.
I think it's pretty much saying that there's no such thing as the speed of light, because you're making actual kind of like measurements of photons going in certain directions, and sometimes those directions are affected by the observer.
I think they always are.
Yeah, but not if you're not looking at them. But those would be kind of like they would consider
well, observing
like randomized.
is looking. When you're pointing a machine at something to observe, the machine's looking at it, quote unquote, effectively. Anders says that Michelson Morley's been questioned. It's just like it's not even clear to me what this experiment is supposedly establishing. Because to me, ether, I already know what ether is. It's negative space. Like I'm never going to change my definition of what ether is. It's just not possible for me, I guess. I mean, I never say never, but I just don't see it, you know?
Yeah, I think the double entendre also is that it's supposed to say that Earth was stationary.
That's another model too. And it's like, it does sort of like, do you understand what I mean when I say that the Earth, according to empiricism, the Earth is flat? Maybe I should defend flat Earth. Wouldn't that be hilarious if I just got on there to just troll it up? It's like, Jen didn't troll enough. Going on to defend intelligent design. It was time to defend flat Earth. It's like I wasn't going to, but Juvid trolled me for 3 hours on Week in Review about Claire, and I was just like, I'll show you. I'll defend flat Earth. Great, yeah, go Jen. And it's just like another bait and switch where I'm just like blabbing about ether the entire time in monadic pure forms. Okay, so is ether part of the monad? Let's look at it that way.
It would kind of have to be.
No, it would kind of not possibly be part of it because it requires there to be distance to be defined. Actually, volume has to be defined for ether to be defined. And the monad doesn't define volume because volume is space and the monad emerges space-time. This is really complicated stuff. If you F up your logic at any point, your whole thing falls apart. So again, back to my original point. How do you know I'm not trolling you right now?
I'm just assuming
one option is to ask God. Sorry?
I was joking. I said I'm assuming you've been trolling me this whole time.
Trolling.
Yeah.
Well, what's a troll?
Well, what is?
It's I was going to say metaphysical, but it's more of a mythical character that disallows the passage of bridges in exchange for hilarious hijinks. Usually invoked in some sort of moral trope. Is that fair enough? But the main idea with the troll is that it disallows you crossing a bridge.
Disallows you from crossing a bridge.
Yeah. It obfuscates your path. If your path is a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
What
like
are
with
you?
Toki and his diabetic comas.
That sounds like a
So
metaphor.
you understand it is. You understand there's different kinds of bridges, right? So
Mhm.
I'm the troll at the bridge of
Ethernet bridge.
crossing to your own egotistical attachments that hurt you. I'm just like, don't, because for me, like space time's disentangled in my perception. So people will hold those beliefs. It's like they're putting a knife into their chest in slow motion, and I can see it
But
more real in a
do
way than
you see
anything
what
else.
I said as defending space time?
No,
All right, never mind. All right, go on.
I certainly wasn't identifying the argument with you personally. Like, I think it's important to
Yeah.
depersonalize arguments and always use the proverbial you. And it's hard not to take stuff personally, but really, yeah, I am, making more often than not these generalizations.
Wait, so can you zoom in on this a little bit? What is this fire and
It's another monad figure. So this monadic
Veda?
approach is slightly different, but it functions in what you could call like not metaphysically equivalent, but similar. So the idea is that this thing transcends the set of all what you call properties, what I call
What's at the
qualities.
top? I'm trying to read all the labels. Okay, we have Veda, bitter.
The point is that ether's already defined under Ayurveda, and I would never go against its axiom.
Okay.
So
what are some of the other labels?
I think you probably already know most of these.
Astringent,
Astringent. Like
sour.
spinach is astringent. Apples. You know when you bite in an apple and it sucks all the moisture out of your mouth? That's astringent.
Okay. Pungent. Is that Braps? You should put Braps in the pungent one.
Hey, if you want to brap hog up my beautiful pure form diagram, that's on
Right.
you. But anyway,
you can't put the word pungent on the screen and not make me think of Braps. That's just
onions
not
are
happen.
pungent. Garlic is pungent. Brap hogs are probably maybe more on the sweet, sour, salty, sassy end of the spectrum. Like, honestly, dude.
All right, that's a good counter argument. So
Yeah, I've been having these arguments for a long time with a lot of really difficult people, but luckily, I think the hardest bit is actually over, which is kind of nice, like that pimple's been popped type thing. But anyway, this is a fundamental. I actually made this a while ago, but yeah, ether's already well defined: air, earth, water, fire. Those are like your platonic elementals, also Vedantic, etc. Elementals. Yeah, so
Okay.
this doesn't exist, obviously, but it's the pure form in the sense that it's the unifying principle behind that which does exist. And we infer that these pure forms must exist based on the record of evidence, aka this convergent, remember? Ta-da! Right.
Wait, this looks like the one thing in the corner there. It looks like the Happy Merch. I'm sorry.
So here's the patterns we want to be focusing on. By the time you get to 3, each of the different, they're all looking quite different. No one's going to disagree with that, right? But in the first one, they all look very similar.
And
Fair enough?
what are these?
Different developmental stages of various animals. And they're,
Which animals though? Just like sorry. Like the first one, I don't know. I don't know what that is.
Are you even familiar with the fact that I have a blog?
Yeah.
You ever read anything on it?
Yeah, but it's like a lot of it's hard to understand, and I know you're.
Oh, well, have you ever heard of asking a question?
Yeah, what do you think the whole thing on Tuesday is gonna be? It's all about learning.
What's the Tuesday thing?
The calculus thing.
That's pretty dang predictable, isn't it? This is probably better to focus on for now. So what is this telling us? It's saying that if hypothetically there were a row 0,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you know what a frame average is,
Like in a video.
yeah.
Yeah,
What
it's
if I frame
it's the
average those
average frame
fuckers?
rate.
What if I frame average those things? But I wouldn't want to frame average them then because I'd be averaging between something and nothing, and that's irrational, right? So I want to
Mhm.
do a topological averaging. So the question is does there exist how complex is the continuous deformation which maps all those things back down to the same exact form? What I'm arguing is that the amount of, deformations to bring all the ones back to the same form when they're at 1 is less than when it's at 3. Like, it's literally not falsifiable, right?
You're saying the
In a
least
good way.
amount of changes. Pick from each row the one that's going to take the least amount of changes to get all to the same form.
Think of it like a map, okay? You have to apply a map to something to change it. So do you agree with the
The
idea that
map is
I
not the
could
test.
map the shape 1 to shape 2, just starting in row 1? I could map one row 1, like 1 1 to 1 2. I could map 1 1 to 1 2 with a very simple map. And I could map. This is probably not a good example because it's hard for me to say which ones I'm actually referring to. But the point
Well,
is
yeah,
that
you
there's
should
more
label
divergence as you go down.
the
There's more
columns too.
fucking divergence. If you look at number 3, if you look at everything with 3 without 1 and 2, you would be hard to see that there was necessarily a similar pattern. You could say, well, yeah, they all have a head, but they don't really look that similar. But if you just look at 1, they're pretty dang similar, okay? Can we agree on that?
Mm-hmm.
So it's less of a deformation between the species in 1 than in 3.
Right.
Because, and then you look at that pattern, okay, and then you infer that there's also a row 0, an unseen row 0, which contains all the information associated with all the subsequent states. And that these 1, 2s, and 3s are just particular states of this one centralizing
Or maybe
monadic pure form effing state, which has all the effing information in it, which is the only reason shit like neural nets can converge to what they can converge to.
maybe it would make
The
more sense to
information
say there's a
associated with these
column
things.
0 that they all share.
The row 0, obviously. The row 1, 2, and 3, not columns. Obviously, the columns aren't even labeled.
I know, but I'm saying, never mind. Because I'm saying that they all have a root. They all have a root. If you put a row 0, it would be a different thing.
It would be a single thing. It would be like the frame average of what's in 1, but it would be a topological average because you wouldn't literally be averaging between nothing and something. You'd be
Okay, because
trying to see
the
what
last
weighting
state.
you need to add to everything to bring it to the exact same area.
Okay, so for example, row 0, it could be like a very basic shape that is like expanding.
It's going to be something like the frame average of everything in row 1. Think of a frame average of everything in row 1, a topological frame average of everything in row 1. There's your monadic pure form. It contains the majority of the information. Everything is devolved from the monadic pure form.
You should probably draw this if you're, because I can't. I'm having a hard time picturing.
Well, if you can't visualize it, me drawing is not going to do anything.
Okay, whatever.
Whenever. I'm just trying to help you here. This is the whole, I understand it's hard. The unifying principle is hard. I'm just like, yeah, I don't make the rules and I can't change the rules. And I'm trying to illustrate a challenging concept. That's all. Here's another pure form. I've actually extrapolated a pure form.
You already showed this.
Yeah. This is much easier, right? So you could extrapolate a fetal pure form if you wanted to. It wouldn't be that hard. It's more about understanding what the concept of a fetal pure form and why would it be beneficial not to believe in a fetal pure form, but to understand that this is a model which is helpful for conceiving of what's happening regardless of its absolute truth. It's not about whether it's objectively, quote, true. We don't have any way to do that. Why? Starts with an H and it rhymes with blard blolipsism. Does anyone know what it is?
hard solipsism.
There's limits on knowability. What do we want to do with the options? Lie about the limits on knowability, or just be honest and just embrace them? Like, I just would rather tell the truth.
Yeah. Can we reconvene on Tuesday?
Sure, man. Have fun.
Is what's his name gonna be there?
Aaron?
Yeah.
I think that's the plan.
All right, cool.
I think it's 9 a.m. Jerusalem time.
Oh yeah, he lives.
So whatever that works out for you. Yeah, I think it should be fun. Did you have any final words, pseudonym? I think we're gonna wrap up. Unless you still have questions, or I don't know what you're up to. I'm down to still talk for a bit if you want to, but I guess maybe JD if you want to have final words.
Yeah, no, I was wrapping up the wrap up show, yo.
Jen, I completely agree with you. I appreciate you having me on. It's actually 4 a.m. It's 4 a.m. where I am, so I'm probably gonna.
It's really nice to meet you, and thank you
yeah.
very much for saying you agree with me. And honestly, I would just rather you.
I think he's being sarcastic.
I want you to agree with yourself. I don't like blind faith, but I do appreciate someone who's thought through the ideas and agrees because reasons, even if those reasons are mafeels. Sometimes that's something.
Right.
Do you have any final words for our 5 viewers that are tuned in at this extremely hardcore hour? Thanks everyone for joining.
There's people who watch it later.
Make sure you're there on Thursday. Don't miss it.
Be there.
All right, I am gonna go, but thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome, and thank you for joining. I'll see everyone real soon.
All right, yeah, I'll talk to you later, Jen.
Bye for now. Oh my gosh, that was so much fun. It's just me and my diagram now. Oh, what a great day. Andrew says, curious that earth, water, wind, and fire is similar to 4 states of matter, solid, fluid, gas, and plasma. It's not the same thing exactly, because if there's 5, you're kind of forgetting ether, right? That's a different state. I would just say look at we gotta validate Thad's model there, peer review, aka colleague caring. He stumbled on something pretty special, possibly, and we just have to go validate it. And so it appears, if he's right, there's 5 quote observables and 3 + 1 dimensions. So those are like, I suppose, adjacent concepts, but his hyperbolic figure 8 thing is a fundamentally 3 + 1 construct, whereas it defines 5 observables, which according to him, they're independent, but then it's like, well, what's independent if they're all connected by this entangled structure, right? So we're looking at metaphysical attributes of HF8, right? Like what has to be true for HF8 to be true? It's a minimum metaphysical complexity. Just focus on that. If it doesn't make sense right away, it'll come with time. So yeah, it's extremely important. And yeah, I think possibly the solid, fluid, gas, plasma thing is analogous to 3 + 1 versus. So there is an attribute of Thad's thing that's analogous to 3 + 1, but there's this other attribute that is analogous to stuff like C and Boltzmann constant, and etc. like that. Okay, vacuum energy. It's like, why you gotta do that? It's like, why you gotta overcomplicate it? You're putting extras on it, just okay, it's complicated enough. Like the resonance and the non-dualistic resonance stuff, it seems trivial at first, and then you realize that each time you get a little closer, you're zooming in on something that's constantly getting more complex. So it's like, oh, it only seems simple from far away, but as you got closer, it's like, what? So now you're saying vacuum energy. How can you be sure that such a concept even exists? What we can really be sure about is that there's some mass floating around like an iceberg, right? And that photons mediate the exchanges in mass, which has an electrical dualism. But, you know, we can't establish light as anything other than that which mediates transitions of this substrate mass. Panchamabhutas, yeah. So these types of other, systems are definitely interesting, definitely worth studying, but not worth hopping on the jump to conclusions, Matt. Many have tried to yoke these systems together, but we got to think about like what are the fundamental suppositions? Where are they coming from? It's not the same language. What is safe to assume about Sanskrit? Is onomatopoeic is English? No, it's a core language, right? So, but English also has a bunch of super amazing attributes. 'Cause it just absorbs the words of other languages like whore absorbs STDs, right? It's just like it's fine. And then like those whores in wherever where they're like, I'm immune to AIDS now type deal. It's not the greatest metaphor I've ever come up with, but I'm on a bit of a tear right now. So yeah, we'll pick this up again real soon with Yippee Kayo Kaye or whatever. Math stream. Woohoo! And you're welcome, Jerome, and everybody else. Thanks. Really appreciate it. The tangents are necessary because you have to sort of understand that you're learning a method. Ultimately, you're shifting a perspective. So yeah, it's only one perspective, and there's just a total barrage of even garbagier metaphors like the student being like, "Oh my god, I'm teaching what you know, master," and then the master being like, "Oh, let's go in a lake," and then like plunging his head under the water, and that's supposed to be something other than whatever. Cue the torture, right? The point is that you just have to understand that everything has its own place, and you understand the place of things by volleying them off experiences with other things. The foundation comes about through the practice. Tangents partially lay a foundation. So, as long as it's not dripping into, oh my God, personal drama, ahem. Just always try to keep it to ideas, intentionally to higher order systems. And that intentionality take you very far. Bye for now.